otherwise be too expensive. Instead of negotiating with Democrats to reopen the government and lower cost, Donald Trump and Republicans are holding the country hostage, putting kids and seniors and veterans at the risk of going hungry and without access to health care. Republicans promised to lower cost. Instead, they will let health care premiums skyrocket, and grocery prices have continued to rise. House Democrats are ready to act, to reopen the government and restore the services Americans need to survive. We need President Trump and Speaker Johnson to sit down with House Democrats so we can negotiate a bipartisan solution that reopens the government and lowers cost. And with that, I will now turn it over and introduce the chair of the Democratic Caucus, Pete Aguilar.
Thank you so much. I want to thank Co-Chair Badagan, the Steering Policy Committee, Co-Chair Wasserman Schultz as well, who just arrived. I'm grateful to be here with my House Democratic colleagues and our witnesses as we continue to drive home the importance of finding a bipartisan deal that reopens the government, fixes the health care crisis that Republicans have created, and feeds hungry children and families. Today, it's my honor to introduce Attorney General Rob Bonta from my state of California, from our state of California. After an incredible victory in California on Tuesday to fight back against Donald Trump's attempts to rig the 2026 midterm elections, AG Bonta is here to share an update on how he's also fighting back against Donald Trump's attacks on health care and SNAP. I've had the privilege of working with Mr. Bonta, and I know firsthand his commitment to ensuring that Californians and Americans across the country have access to quality, affordable health care and food assistance that they need to survive. In California, AG Bonta is leading the way to preserve federal funding for critical programs that hardworking families rely on in their daily lives. This work is more important than ever, with the Trump administration continuing to double down on their agenda to cut health care and food assistance programs in order to free up money for their corporate tax cuts. AG Bonta, thank you so much for being here. You're now recognized.
Working? Good morning. Thank you, Chair Aguilar, for that kind introduction. Thank you, Co-Chair Badagan, for your leadership. I want to thank Leader Jeffries for inviting me. Thank you to all of you for your leadership, Congress members, to our nation and to the people of the great state of California. I'm honored for the opportunity to be here to talk a little bit about our work at the California DOJ, holding this president accountable when he breaks the law, which unfortunately has been frequent, it's been consistent, it's been blatant, and it has been brazen. I'll do a quick overview and then get into our SNAP work. We have sued the president and his administration 46 times in 41 weeks. We had no intention and we have no desire to sue him at all, certainly not once a week, but we sue him when he breaks the law. That's our position. If he breaks the law, we sue. If he doesn't break the law, we don't sue. And so he's broken the law more than once a week in ways that have hurt our states, and the Democratic Attorneys General have banded together. We work as a coalition, 23 of us across the nation, holding this administration accountable when he tries to withhold $3 trillion worth of funding from our states that you, Congress, have already appropriated, when he tries to violate and trample over rights and freedoms like birthright citizenship, like the right to vote, when he tries to access the private sensitive information of your constituents, bank account information and Social Security information through DOJ, when he imposes unlawful tariffs that make costs higher for Americans instead of lower. We have also pushed back when National Guard has been unlawfully deployed to our cities, militarizing cities and providing civilian law enforcement on American soil. So there's, unfortunately, a tragically long list of violations of lawlessness. This is a president who is a repeat offender, who has violated the law multiple times. I want to tell you, we are winning our cases over 80% of the time. When a court issues an order, a temporary restraining order, a preliminary injunction, a permanent injunction, and more because we're advancing our cases downfield with the passage of time, we are winning final judgments in cases. And courts are finding that Trump has broken the law. They're issuing orders stopping and blocking the unlawful actions that are hurting Americans. and we're grateful for the opportunity to meet him in court, to hold the line at the boundary of his authority and say, you cannot cross this line. You can do things lawfully, you can advance your agenda lawfully, but you may never advance your agenda unlawfully. And I also want you to know this, in all of our cases, he is following the court orders. There was one case where we had to move to enforce the court order, but the courts, their authority is alive and well. Their orders are being followed. They're being complied with. Courts remain a place where you can go get justice and accountability and stop an unlawful president from hurting Americans with his unlawful actions. I do want to also mention this. Not one Republican attorney general has brought any lawsuit challenging the unlawful actions, the unconstitutional actions of this president. They have bent the knee. They have been craven. They have been cowardly. They have been supine. They have allowed the president to do what he wants when he wants, including ripping away funding from the people in their states, trampling over the rights and freedoms of the people in their states. They have stood by and done nothing. And they have also, that includes standing by while SNAP benefits get ripped away from the people in their states. And as you know, SNAP is an entitlement program. The statutory framework uses the word shall. The payments shall be made to any eligible American. And in the history of our country, SNAP has always been paid to those who are eligible, including in times of government shutdown, including the 2019 Trump government shutdown. It is a entitlement program that is obviously a safety net service. These are people who are disabled. They are veterans. They are seniors. They are children. They deserve their government to look out for them and stand up for them and make sure that when they're hungry, they are fed. That's who we are as a nation. Trump deliberately, by choice, intentionally, went out of his way to rip away over $5 billion of funding for over 41 million Americans who are hungry. They gaslighted the American people by saying, quote, the well is dry, when the contingency fund for SNAP that is supposed to be used in times like this, of times of a government shutdown, was full of $5 billion to $6 billion worth of funding. And they refused to pay benefits to hungry Americans until the Democratic attorneys general and others, there's a separate lawsuit as well, brought lawsuits that required him, the Trump administration and USDA, to make the payments. We had to go to court and get a court order that ordered the Trump administration, the USDA, to use those contingency funds. The court also allowed the Trump administration to determine if they were going to use other funds to pay all benefits, which would have been a very appropriate thing for the Trump administration to do, given that this is an entitlement benefit. They decided not to. They decided to only use the contingency funds and make partial payments to those who are eligible across the states. That's a problem. Why? Because it is an administrative nightmare. It creates a delay. People are already not getting their benefits since the beginning of this month. It will take multiple weeks for these partial payments to be processed, for EBT cards to be loaded, and for hungry Americans to be able to get the food that they need and they deserve. Trump could have either paid all of the benefits or had a clean approach to how to make partial payments, including just a straight across-the-board percentage, which could be processed and administratively applied more easily. So we're in a place where the Trump administration seems to be saying, I will starve hungry Americans until you allow me to rip away affordable health care from sick Americans. And he is treating hungry Americans, our most vulnerable, as political pawns in a very dangerous game. It's harmful, it's disgusting, it's dangerous, and we're not going to stand for it. So we've gone to court once again to hold this administration accountable. We will continue to be committed to upholding the rule of law, making sure we protect the health, safety of our of Americans. And I just want to say that as hungry Americans continue to be without the benefits that they deserve, we have a president who is more focused seemingly on his $300 million gold-plated ballroom, has been jet-setting overseas, and has not been attending to the needs of Americans. But the Democratic AGs and all of you are, they deserve leaders who will fight for them, who will stand up for them, who will be their champion, who will make sure that the hungry get fed and the sick have health care. So I thank you for your leadership. I'm honored to be here with you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney General. We are so grateful not only for your comments today, but truly for your leadership. We were admonished by Speaker Mike Johnson this week to don't get lost in the facts. And we appreciate that you are setting forth the facts and the very real, cruel choice. This using hunger as a political weapon is a choice, and we thank you for your work. I'm also grateful to our steering and policy co-chairs, to my fellow members of leadership, and especially to my colleagues for being here. But it is you, the witnesses, that we are really, really grateful for helping us demonstrate just how much is at stake in this fight. And I am especially grateful for our next speaker, who can shine a light on what it means to be a mom in America right now. And we have a White House that really can't stop talking about birth rates in our country. Republicans who cannot for the life of them figure out why women aren't having more babies, while they gut Medicaid, close hospitals, dismantle Head Start, and take food off the table of families. Working women do not have the resources to become a mother, let alone be a mother. 35% of the counties in America don't have anywhere to give birth. Most Americans live in a child care desert. 60% of households can't afford a basic standard of living. And Republicans expect those families to give up more, to sacrifice more so that billionaires can get more. It is as hollow an agenda as it sounds, and it explains the backlash that we saw at the polls on Tuesday. We know where the American people stand, and Democrats are going to keep fighting for an economy where you can actually start, raise, and sustain a family. In the richest country to ever exist, that should not be too much to ask. So I thank everyone here for being in this fight to build that future. And our next speaker is the proud mom of three, the founder and CEO of the Baby Stewart Foundation, Ashley Gooden Stewart. Ashley, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your work in advocacy, and the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
My name is Ashley Gooden Stewart. I live in Lamarck, Texas, with my partner, our three young kids, ages 1, 6, and 8. I'm a certified grief coach, nonprofit founder, and a proud member of Moms Rising. I appreciate the opportunity to share my story today and all you and everything everyone is doing to fight for working families. I appreciate that. My family has struggled to make ends meet as the cost of essentials has risen dramatically, and our child care crisis has prevented me from working full-time. The support Medicaid and WIC provide is critical for us, as it is for millions of other families. But now, this administration is refusing to fund these programs, putting our health and well-being at risk. I first joined Moms Rising because of my struggles as a working mom. In my experience, our economy is not set up to support working mothers. Here in the United States, working parents are forced to care for our families without the basic care policies people in other developed nations take for granted, like paid family and medical leave and quality, affordable child care. When my son was born in 2019, I was laid off from my job at a health insurance company where I'd worked for 3.5 years. Since then, I've struggled to maintain consistent employment because child care is not affordable or accessible. Where I live, child care programs cost hundreds of dollars per week, and most have long wait lists. The best solution for me was to do contract work, but that is seasonal, spotty, and unreliable. Sometimes my mom helps with child care so I can take on more hours, but she is a veteran with a disability and has limitations on what she can do. It's been a real struggle. Without my full-time income, my family has struggled to keep up with rising costs. As I said, WIC and Medicaid are critical for us. WIC helps me keep healthy food on the table that my kids need to grow and thrive. Eggs are expensive. Milk is expensive. Fresh produce is expensive. These days, it feels like everything in life is expensive. WIC helps fill in the gaps. The breastfeeding classes WIC provides are incredible, as are the classes on child development milestones and cooking healthy meals. Although I've been a mother for years, every child is different, and these resources are extremely helpful. But for so many families like mine, the government shutdown is causing an enormous amount of stress because WIC and SNAP are running out of funds, and this administration is refusing to use the contingency funds Congress approved to protect them. My family has also received SNAP benefits, and although we recently lost access, so many of the families in my community that I support through my nonprofit organization depend on the support SNAP provides. I was relieved when I saw this weekend that a judge ordered Trump to release SNAP funds, but I've also heard that families may only get partial SNAP benefits this month. That will be terribly harmful for families in my community and across the country. I'm also terrified because this summer, Republicans in Congress voted to slash nearly $1 trillion from Medicaid. Medicaid is a lifeline for us. It's the reason I had access to quality prenatal and postpartum care when each of my children were born. Medicaid enables us to take our kids to the doctor when they're sick and for all their routine checkups. My older daughter has asthma and severe allergies, and Medicaid helps us afford the medications and specialists she needs to stay healthy. I have no idea how we'll access care without it. It's devastating to me that any lawmaker would attack programs that would help working families like mine access health care while doling out big tax breaks for billionaires and giant corporations. The thought that any lawmaker prioritizes a billionaire's greed over my daughter's access to her asthma medication makes my stomach churn. I want to thank the members of this committee for fighting to protect Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. The cost of health care has skyrocketed, and these policies are more critical than ever. We need every single elected leader to sort out their priorities. That starts with funding Medicaid and the ACA, reopening the government, ensuring that there is no interruption to WIC and SNAP, and getting to work on the pressing issues that are holding families like mine back, including solving our child care crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Dean, you're now recognized.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Is this on? Can you hear me? Yes, thank you. I'm pleased to be here, but I'm not pleased for the many reasons we are here, the dysfunction that brings us here. But I am proud to be here with the steering and policy leadership. Thank you for calling us all together. And you see here on the dais also our caucus leadership. Take note, Democrats are here. Democrats have been here, wanting to solve the problems of the American people, some of which are so self-inflicted by this administration, it is unconscionable. We are here. The Speaker of the House shot us all home September the 19th. So while we talk about, what are we up to, a 37-day shutdown, something like that, add 11 days to that, because we left 11 days early under the gavel of the Speaker of the House, knowing that a shutdown was coming, knowing that SNAP benefits were at risk. So I'm pleased to be here with you and this leadership, pleased to be here with these testifiers. I have the awesome privilege of introducing a constituent of mine, Miss Lisa Boone-Bogacki. I won't tell her story because I want you to tell your story. It's an important story. It's a unique story. It's a human story, but you are not alone, and I know you know that. My district spans Montgomery and Berks counties outside of Philadelphia. And it's important to note that it's a wide range of very diverse families who are impacted by the dysfunction and shamefulness of what's going on here under the Trump administration and Republican leadership. This policy committee is shining a light on health care and on SNAP. People are living in fear that come the new year, they won't have access to care. They won't be able to afford care. In my district alone, suburban Philadelphia, as many as 28,000 people are at risk of losing their coverage. At least 22,000 will see their premiums skyrocket, thanks to the cruelty of this administration and the complacency of the Republican leadership and the silence of the others. The big, ugly law made devastating cuts to Medicaid and to SNAP. And while we're talking about the SNAP crisis right now from the drying up of resources, let us not forget that under the big, ugly bill, the administration and the Republicans took $186 billion to SNAP. This is all in furtherance of what is in Project 2025, which is to dismantle and to defund SNAP. In my district alone, a family of four for health care earning $64,000 a year will see a 300+% increase in their premiums. That's thousands and thousands of dollars increased. And who is it? It's working families, it's children, it's single parents, it's seniors, it's veterans, it's people with disabilities, it is people in recovery at risk of losing Medicaid and coverage. Our neighbors' health, well-being, and dignity are on the line. And so if you hear a tone in my voice that says I'm outraged, I am outraged. We are all outraged on behalf of the American people. A lot of things go on in the chamber, but for the chamber to have fallen silent for these last 6 or 7 weeks is unconscionable. That's why it is critical that we hear from people who are directly affected to paint the picture of what is being lost, of the humanity that is being impacted. So that's why I'm grateful to you, Lisa, from Fleetwood in my district. Fleetwood is in Berks County, Pennsylvania. Lisa, I ask you and thank you for being willing to come here for the inconvenience of that, to tell the story of how your family relies upon the Affordable Care Act. And I do want to remind you, we are thankful to you for telling your story, but we know you are not alone. As I discussed this with my district team yesterday, person after person on the call said, and Lisa represents so many of our constituents. With that, Lisa, the floor is yours.
I think it's on. Okay. Hello, and thank you, Representative Dean, for that introduction and for allowing me to speak before you today. As said, my name is Lisa Bogacki, and I live in Fleetwood, Pennsylvania. My family has relied on the Affordable Care Act for over a decade. If Republicans get their way, next year our premiums will quadruple and our deductibles will skyrocket. Healthcare first became a major challenge for my family in 2009 when my husband died suddenly, leaving me to raise our 3 young children on my own. I'm a self-employed physical therapist, and before my husband died, our family was covered by his employer's health plan. Following his death, I was forced onto the private health insurance market, which is entirely broken. Before the ACA, the health insurance company I was paying exorbitant monthly fees to deemed me too high risk for coverage due to diagnoses of situational depression due to my husband's sudden death, mild asthma, and seasonal allergies. As I was ineligible for the coverage, they made my then 4-year-old son the primary subscriber and responsible party for the family plan. All correspondence, including the bills, came addressed to him. I was never given a reason for this, despite many phone calls asking and pleading for it to change. So at one point I resorted to giving my son the forms they insisted on sending him to color on, and I sent them back. Our healthcare providers, the pediatricians for my children, were were simply astounded, their chins hitting the floor. They couldn't even believe this was happening. But aside from the miracle of eliminating the pre-existing condition horrors, the ACA has helped my family tremendously. Prior to it, I was paying over $1,000 per month in premiums, and that was 15 years ago. The Social Security survivors benefits my children received following their father's death went primarily towards paying for health care. Now, Republicans are sabotaging the ACA. Next year, my monthly premiums will quadruple, and my deductibles will skyrocket. The plan I am able to afford will now have deductibles of $8,450 per individual and $16,900 for family, which is now my youngest son, who is 19 and a college student, and myself. This makes my coverage essentially catastrophic coverage, as without an unfortunate major health event, these deductibles will never be reached. As the only wealthy country without guaranteed health care, we should, at the very least, be working toward making health care more accessible and affordable to all of our citizens. Letting subsidies expire and cutting essential programs like Medicaid and Medicare can literally be a difference of life and death to many. As a healthcare worker for my entire career of close to 40 years, I cannot comprehend the thought of going without insurance. Yet I am already forgoing certain medical care that is not covered by my bronze level health plan, choosing instead to try to wait another 5 years until I'm eligible for Medicare. We cannot pretend to be a great country when we allow citizens to languish without full medical coverage, unless you happen to be lucky enough to be able to afford it. Thank you to all of you for hearing me and for continuing to do the work that is so needed in these times. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Representative Ivey, you are now recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to thank the Steering and Policy Committee for putting this hearing together. I appreciate the fact our leadership is here with Catherine Clark, Caucus Chair Pete Aguilar. And I want to thank all of you all, the witnesses so far. Very powerful testimony for your statements here today that I think really helped to shed light on where we are. I see Mr. DeMarco is here, someone I've known for decades who's been working on these issues and really making a great difference. So I'm pleased to see you here today. And it's critical for us. We're in a major fight right now. There's an affordability agenda that the Democrats continue to push. Healthcare is at the center of it. And, the testimony you've given so far, I think, really underscores why. And I want to make sure we sort of point out and reemphasize the point that I've been seeing happening here for a while. The Republican attack on Obamacare, or the Affordable Care Act, but I prefer to call it Obamacare. It's been going on for 15 years now, and they realized they couldn't take it out with a frontal assault. So now it looks like they're trying to go after it with death by 1,000 cuts. And when we hear what kind of impact the premium jumps are going to have, I think that really underscores the danger and the impact that can have on the American people, millions of American people. We got Bobby Laughlin here today, who I think is going to add to this as well. He's an outstanding individual. He's personally experienced the life-changing impact of some of these federal health care policies and what they can do. And I know he's been a great voice in Maryland as well. On behalf of the Maryland delegation, I'd like to introduce Mr. Laughlin for his testimony and thank him for coming in today to provide it.
Thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Bobby Laughlin. I live in Baltimore, Maryland, work in both the restaurant and HVAC industries. Neither of my jobs provide me with an insurance plan. I buy my insurance through my state's marketplace. The federal health care tax credits have been a lifeline for millions of Americans like myself who struggle to afford quality health insurance. They have lowered my monthly premiums significantly, reduced my deductible by thousands of dollars, and improved my access to health care greatly. Previously, I was paying for a higher cost plan that did not give me much coverage. I had a high deductible and was paying hundreds of dollars for visits to specialists. If I had needed to go to the emergency room or needed other expensive treatment, I would have been put into thousands of dollars of debt. Most importantly, because I have a better plan now, I have had access to preventative care for elevated cholesterol, which would have otherwise gone unnoticed. I live a much healthier and financially secure life because I have quality, affordable health care. Millions of Americans like me need the federal tax credits to be continued. Easy access to affordable health care has made it possible for Americans to stay healthy and productive without fear of financial ruin from expensive medical bills. This law is not only important for the health and well-being of tax credit recipients, but it has significant economic benefits for the country as a whole. By providing affordable health care to Americans, we can help to reduce the overall cost of health care nationally. This will lead to a healthier workforce, reduce absenteeism, and increase productivity. With the rising costs of living, a slowing job market, and an uncertain economic outlook, it is more important than ever for this nation to take decisive action to ensure that those who need the health care can afford it. Without accessible and affordable coverage, millions of Americans risk falling into crippling debt, suffering from preventable and debilitating health conditions, and even losing their lives. Protecting access to health care is not only a moral imperative, it is essential to the long-term health productivity and stability of our communities. If the federal tax credits end, health care will become a major expense for me. My premiums will more than double, and I will be forced to downgrade my plan to something that will barely cover my needs or give up my insurance entirely. I will be put into a situation where if I am seriously injured or am struck by chronic illness, I will be bankrupted by medical debt. This will not only affect me, but millions of Americans who do not receive health care from their employer. Families, children, and small business owners and contract workers will all be less healthy and financially burdened. This will have a net negative effect across the country, and I pray that these credits can be extended and save millions of Americans from suffering and harm. Thank you for allowing me to speak today.
Thank you to our witnesses for your testimony. We will now turn to member questions, and we will begin with Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Thank you so much to my fellow co-chair. Attorney General Bonta, welcome. Thank you so much for your fierce advocacy. It is really incredulous that not a single Republican Attorney General in the country has filed a lawsuit to fight back on the completely illegal actions throughout this first 10 months of the Trump presidency. And that's not, in spite of the fact that his actions are really seriously hurting their own constituents. But the MAGA cult is real, so and it's on full display. On the SNAP, on the two SNAP court decisions, the insane back and forth from the president and his staff, where are we now? I mean, you represent the largest state in the country, and obviously millions of SNAP beneficiaries. We have 42 million SNAP beneficiaries in the country. Where are we with the potential payout, and what's your sense of the timeline, if there is even a plan that's been communicated to you?
Sure, and let me just mention that while no Republican Attorney General has brought any lawsuit or challenge to the unlawful unconstitutional actions of the Trump administration in 3 states where there is a Republican AG but a Democratic governor, the Democratic governors have reached out to us to join our suits on behalf of the people of their state who they believe should have food and should have their rights honored and the funding appropriated. Governor Beshear in Kentucky, Governor Shapiro in Pennsylvania, and Governor Kelly in Kansas.
Good to hear.
So we're grateful to have them join us. I do just want to say that in my humble opinion, regardless of your political leanings, any American should be outraged by the ripping away of food from hungry Americans. And the Trump administration is doing this all by choice. Many of you know there was a posting by the USDA on the website indicating that they were going to pay the funds during the period of the government shutdown, and then they did a 180-degree turn and removed that from their website. So this is a choice. And where we are now is we have 2 court orders requiring the payment by the U.S. Department of Agriculture of the contingency fund.
Right.
The contingency fund has about $5 to $6 billion in it. The cost for all eligible Americans to receive SNAP benefits for the month of November is $8 billion. So it falls short of full payment. And the courts have asked the federal administration to come forward with a plan for how they're going to use the contingency funds, and even invited them to use additional funds to pay full benefits.
Which, by the way, as an appropriator, I can say that they have full transfer authority to be able to move funds from elsewhere like they have rightfully for the military.
Right. And they've moved some funds for WIC, and we believe they can fully fund SNAP. But they decided not to, and they decided to propose a formula that is very administratively burdensome, slow, and difficult to administer. So right now where we are is a proposal by the federal administration to make payments that, partial payments that could take weeks, in some states 4 to 6 weeks before the payments can be processed. So there's no sense of urgency. There's no understanding of the needs of Americans who are hungry to get their benefits now, yesterday, not in 4 to 6 weeks. The plaintiffs in the two cases are proposing alternatives, including full payment as an alternative and a cleaner partial payment approach that's easier, more easily administrated, like just a clean 50% calculation on the past month's benefits, which would not take 4 to 6 weeks and could be processed more quickly. So that's where we are, but there's ongoing court proceedings. We will continue to push for full payment and or quicker payment. But again, the Trump administration could have fixed this weeks ago. They can fix it today. They can make full payment now. It's their choice.
Thank you. On behalf of the 32,000 food assistance recipients in my district who the president is making suffer unnecessarily. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll recognize myself now. Attorney General, thank you so much for your leadership in defending SNAP and so many other issues as well. You know, in California, we have millions of, over 5 million Californians who rely on what we call CalFresh, which are the SNAP benefits, including children and people with disabilities and seniors and veterans. I want to follow up to this question that not a single Republican Attorney General has joined the lawsuits. Is your lawsuit only going to benefit Democratic states or Republican states be impacted?
It's a really good question. There was a recent U.S. Supreme Court decision called the CASA decision, which was an aspect of the birthright citizenship lawsuit that came up to the U.S. Supreme Court on this issue of nationwide injunctions. And it basically made it harder to get a nationwide injunction and essentially said that you need to be a party to a lawsuit to get the relief that you seek. And Democratic attorneys general had been up to that point seeking, in appropriate cases, nationwide injunctions, and I believed that Republican AGs were secretly thrilled that Democratic AGs were getting nationwide injunctions. They didn't have to publicly defy their leader. They could continue to bend the knee and not challenge him, but also get the benefits that we were delivering for them through the Democratic AG's lawsuits. Now, you do have to be a party to the lawsuit to get the relief. I thought it was very possible that the judges in our SNAP lawsuit would have provided relief only to the states before them. I don't think it's wrong to provide relief to everyone. Everyone deserves SNAP benefits. But I don't necessarily think that was required by the law. The Republican AGs are going to get the benefits without having to go to court on this case. And again, I don't think that's wrong because all Americans deserve full SNAP benefits. But going forward, there will be times where if we're seeking funding or the defense of certain rights, where some courts will say only those before us, and it will only be the Democratic attorneys general will get the relief sought, and the Republican AGs will have to do a lot of explaining to their constituents as to why they are not upholding their oath, why they're allowing the Trump administration to violate the rights of their constituents and rip away funding that is essential for them.
Well, thank you. Know that House Democrats are fighting for all Americans to have access to food. As you mentioned, everybody should have that access. It should not be a issue that only impacts one party. It impacts us all of us.
Absolutely.
I want to also ask, right now there's a government shutdown. Government remains closed. Court and agency staff are furloughed. What impact has the shutdown had on your litigation?
There have been some requests by the U.S. Department of Justice to pause our cases because of lack of resources. And when we have an order in place, restraining order or a preliminary injunction or a permanent injunction where we are essentially blocking the unlawful action from occurring, we have agreed to allowing the case to be paused because we like the status quo. We're protecting our people and we're winning in the case. But if we have a pending request to the court where we are seeking an order to block unlawful conduct for the Trump administration. We are not agreeing to the pause, and we are demanding an order that identifies the unlawful action and has an order issued to prevent that unlawful action from harming the people in our states. So there have been some requests from the U.S. DOJ indicating that they have a shortage of resources, and sometimes we agree when appropriate for the American people, and sometimes we don't.
It seems to me that the administration, the president needs to be held accountable even if there is a shutdown, and so this litigation should resume, especially in this scenario. Thank you so much, Attorney General. And now I will recognize Representative Horsford for questions.
Thank you to Co-Chair Barragan and to Co-Chair Wasserman Schultz, and for our entire Steering and Policy Committee. I'm losing my voice because we had a telephone town hall with over 11,000 people on it last night, asking a lot of questions about SNAP and their health care. All across this country, the cost of living is crushing working families. Grocery prices are breaking budgets, rent keeps climbing, and now skyrocketing healthcare costs are set to push people past their limits. At a recent roundtable, one senior told me, 1 minute the court says the president has to release the funds, but then he says his administration will only release 50%. Then we hear the state is stepping in. Do you see why many of us are so panicked? President Trump is giving people an ultimatum. Choose between food, rent, or their health. But instead of stepping up and working across the aisle to support the American people, congressional Republicans are bent on gutting SNAP and the Affordable Care Act. I'm going to call this what it is. It's a shakedown of the working class. The very programs that lift working families up are being gutted at the same time that community-based resources like food banks are being stretched to their breaking points. We should be focused on affordability, on making SNAP stronger, on making health care within reach, and ensuring that every worker earns a fair day's pay for a fair day's work. Many of the people that are on SNAP are working people, but they're not being given a livable wage. And I call on those companies to do their part and raise the wage of these workers. But to Speaker Johnson, my message to you is to bring the House back into session. Bring your conference back to the table. It is time to govern. It is time for serious, grown-up conversations about how we reopen this government in a bipartisan way, how we lower costs, and how we get this country moving again. Working families shouldn't have to be forced to give up food or medicine or housing just to stay afloat while you give $40 billion to Argentina. AG Bonta, I want to thank you for your work to hold this administration accountable. You said you've had to sue them 46 times in 46 weeks. You and 23 other attorneys general, including my own, Attorney General Aaron Ford from Nevada, successfully intervened to hold the Trump administration accountable and to secure these SNAP benefits for 42 million people, including 500,000 in Nevada. However, following your lawsuit and a similar one in Rhode Island, President Trump posted on Truth Social that SNAP benefits will, quote, only be given when the radical left Democrats open the government, unquote. Later, the White House press secretary walked those comments back, saying partial SNAP benefits would still be issued for this month. What is your reaction to this president's remarks and really lawlessness against the courts and their order?
It's outrageous. It's disgusting. It's despicable, and it's unlawful. And he may be okay starving hungry Americans, treating them as political pawns in his very dangerous game, but the law does not allow for it. We will not stand for it as Democratic AGs, and the court order prevents what he is saying. He is required, and they are paying the contingency fund component. So, and it's confusing and scary and irresponsible for him to post like this. And his press secretary walked this statement back later and said the contingency funds would actually be paid against the desire and the will of the president to starve hungry Americans. But it shows where his head is and where his heart is or where it's not. And that's why we've had to sue the president 46 times in 41 weeks, because he goes off on rants like this. He has contempt for the law. He is untethered from the facts, and he continues to break the law. And so we need to rein him in, and we will continue to do that, and this is another example.
Thank you. If I could just briefly, Ms. Gooden Stewart, thank you for your attendance, for your lived experience, and for sharing that and the strength that you represent on behalf of so many millions of Americans. How are the further cuts to SNAP and WIC and Medicaid straining the limited resources that you and other families are struggling with right now?
Well, myself and the families I serve in my community, with everything just being limited, resources, help, nonprofits like the Baby Stewart Foundation, it's been hard already. Families have to making the awful decision to, buy 2 weeks worth of diapers, or do I take the little money that I have and go buy groceries? So these are some of the decisions they're making. And with everything going on with the government shutdown, it's not going to lead to better living conditions. It's almost as if, these people have nowhere to turn. The families have nowhere to turn. And, it may cause issues like what you said with the food banks and everything. The food banks in Galveston County are asking for donations. They see what's going on. It's elderly people hungry, disabled vets. And with these limited resources and funding low, it's extremely hard for everyone. So just having the sense of community and having to pull the little resources that we have to help people is what we are aiming to do right now.
Thank you so much for that testimony. Next, we have Representative Thompson. I recognize you for your time.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the Policy and Steering Committee and all the members who are here today, and to all the witnesses who've just done an outstanding job sharing your very compelling stories. And a special thanks to my Attorney General. General, thanks for being here. You've been on the tip of the spear, as it's been pointed out, on every major issue where this administration is trying to hurt the people of our state of California and people across the country. Thank you for that. Well, welcome to Day 37 of the federal government shutdown, the longest running shutdown in our history, beating the last record set under this president during his first term in office. Well, I don't see that as winning. It's a monumental failure of the House majority, and it continues to be prolonged because of this president. The same president who, when there was a shutdown under a Democratic president, said it's the president's fault if the government is shut down. Bottom line, Speaker Johnson sent a continuing resolution to the Senate that doesn't have the votes to pass. So it's simple. Speaker Johnson, bring your Republican members back from vacation and work with Democrats to draft a bill that will pass and will fund and open the government. Too much is at stake to continue to have your members out on vacation. People are losing their health care. And make no mistake, nobody in America should not be able to have health care, nor should anyone be forced into bankruptcy trying to pay their medical bills. People are losing their food security, the majority of which are working people, kids, seniors, and the disabled. And make no mistake, nobody in the richest country in the world, a country that, by the way, feeds the rest of the world, should go hungry. Federal workers are working without pay, they've been laid off, or they're furloughed. That just should not happen. Mr. Speaker, you're guilty of public policy malpractice. You have a responsibility to work for the American people, all of the American people, not work against them. Convene the House so we can open the government and address the issues important to the people that we represent. And in addition to the things that we're talking about, which are extremely important, there are a ton of other issues we should be here working on. Telehealth has expired. There's no farm bill. Flood insurance is expired. Appropriation bills haven't been passed. The FAA flight safety legislation has not been passed. If for no other reason, bring us back so we can join Marjorie Taylor Greene in reading the names of the people who are on the Epstein files. There's a ton of things we could be doing. So bring your members back. Let's work together to address the issues that the American people sent us to Washington to work on. General Bonta, you mentioned that in your lawsuits that there's maybe some question as to whether or not all states would benefit from this. But the fact of the matter is, if it just affects people in California or the other states where attorney generals have joined you, we're talking about all the people. I mean, this isn't just helping Democrats in one state or another. Isn't this helping all people? Aren't Republicans who are disabled, Republicans who are working for substandard wages, kids who are going to school and to bed hungry, won't they benefit too?
100%, Congressmember Thompson. When we bring our lawsuits and we secure relief, if the court issues an order that applies to the 23 Democratic Attorney General states, everyone in those states benefit, regardless of political affiliation, regardless of party. Every child, every senior, every disabled person, every veteran, whoever is eligible for the relief gets that relief. So thank you for that clarification.
Thank you very much. I yield back.
Thank you. I now recognize Representative Takano.
So I manage a restaurant and I also do HVAC part-time.
So you have two part-time jobs. And
Yes.
You get your health insurance from the Maryland Exchange.
Yes, I do.
And you currently have a gold plan.
I have a silver plan, and it costs me under $70 a month.
Silver plan, and the tax credits, the enhanced premium tax credits, help you afford that policy.
Yeah. Without them, it would be like around $400 a month.
Have you been able to check what the premiums cost now? Are those available on the website?
I think it'll be around $200. Maryland has, for another year, they're going to foot a little bit more of the bill. So we're lucky in Maryland that we have that, but it is still going up, yeah.
It's still going up.
Yes.
So, Maryland has mitigated.
Yes.
The cost.
A tiny bit, yes.
For you at this point.
Yep. For another year. Yes.
For another year, but in a year you're going to be facing, as your testimony said.
It'll be very expensive.
Costs.
Yeah, or I'll have to downgrade to a bronze plan that will have a very high deductible.
Downgrade to a bronze plan.
Yeah, or get rid of it. Yeah, we'll see.
Ms. Bogacki, where are you? What state are you from again? If you could remind me.
I'm from Pennsylvania.
From Pennsylvania. And you also buy your health insurance through the Pennsylvania Exchange?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Can you, and you said that you're facing the possibility of an $8,000 deductible for your family, to cover your family. Did I hear that right?
It's almost $17,000 for the family.
$17,000 for the family.
$8,000 for each individual.
Each individual.
Yes.
So the way that works is each individual has to meet that deductible.
The 8,000 something, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's just impossible.
Yes.
And then that's impossible. Yes. So when you said, what struck me in your testimony is you said that you essentially are going to a catastrophic plan.
Yes.
Which doesn't really help you pay for the everyday things. If you have chronic disease or you have to manage all these other
Right.
illnesses, an accident happens,
Right.
out of pocket, you're going to spend up to $18,000 for your family.
Yeah. Yeah.
But of course, you need the insurance because if someone
Because
gets
something might
cancer or
happen.
something like that, you're facing hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Exactly.
I find it hard to believe that this Congress, the Republican leadership and this president are indifferent to your plight, indifferent to the plight of the 22 million Americans that depend on the tax credits and the several million more that are going to see premiums increase. That's just heartbreaking for me. And I want you to know that I stand square, shoulder to shoulder with my colleagues so that we can protect health care and lower these costs. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being here, all of you. I yield.
Thank you for those questions. And I know one of our witnesses needs to depart. I want to thank you all for being here. Mr. Bonta, if you have to depart, that's okay. We appreciate your being here. I will now recognize Representative Scanlon.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for bringing us together while House Republicans and President Trump continue to be AWOL on solving the health care and affordability challenges that Americans, including those here today with us, are facing every day. Last week, for the first time ever, SNAP benefits lapsed. In the 60 years since SNAP was created, through recessions, natural disasters, prior shutdowns, the federal government has never missed a SNAP payment until now. And why? It was a choice by this White House. It was a choice to defund SNAP because Congress has already authorized billions of dollars in emergency money to fund SNAP, including during government shutdowns. After states were forced to sue the federal government, 2 federal courts have ordered the White House to release the SNAP funds. But instead of following the law and feeding hungry families, this administration initially refused to release the SNAP money and continues to refuse to seek alternative sources of funding, which again is a choice. It's a choice to delay the fraction of benefits that the White House is releasing. It's a choice to tell states that they will not be reimbursed if they step in to fill that gap and feed families. It is a choice to create a bureaucratic.
It's very easy to run and win as a socialist, right? All you do is promise everything to everyone for free. What a great message that is. Boy, that really resonates for people who don't study history. And while you're making all those promises, you hope that they never realize the trap that you're actually setting, the impossibility of fulfilling your fantastical claims and dreams, and the extreme danger and chaos that would result if you ever could. When you run as a socialist, you have to hope that they never understand that this will lead to the inevitable loss of their freedom, their opportunity, and their security, the loss of meritocracy and fairness in society, the loss of colorblindness, and the loss of emphasis on character, and the morality and the personal incentive and the common sense that we rely upon to keep a republic in operation. If you run as a socialist, you run on a big list of false claims, and you promise everything to everyone and you can't deliver, and if you were ever able to deliver, it will be to the great detriment of the very people that you lured in to vote for you. Third fact about the election on Tuesday night is that the Democrats, and you all are not writing about this, and you should be, not writing enough about it, the Democrats have now set themselves on a collision course in their own tent. If you look at Spanberger in Virginia and Sherrill in New Jersey, they tried to run as moderate pragmatists. That's how they self-described. But they will be no match for the coming communist wave taking over their party right now. The energy is on the side of the Marxists. Look no further than the top 2 Democrats here in Congress. We've noted this here every day. They had to bend the knee to the socialists. Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are both from New York. The top Democrat leader in the House and the top Democrat leader in the Senate, they couldn't get around that. And so Hakeem had to ultimately embrace it. He had to give the full blessing to Mamdani and his agenda. And he co-owns it. And Chuck Schumer flirted with it. He pandered all along. He flirted with that open endorsement till the better end, even though Mamdani is an activist against Israel and an anti-Semite. Chuck Schumer is the highest-ranked Jewish official in America, and even he couldn't bring himself to disclaim that. And as we've noted here every day, the sole reason for the entire federal government being shut down now, the sole reason for all the American people suffering all this pain and hardship is because of the fear of political retribution from the far-left activists who run the Democrat Party. That is the motivation for the shutdown. It's never been about any policy issue at all. It was only so that they could show a fight and try to show that they're tough to this rising far-left activist base in the party. The old guard has been repudiated, and the radicals are taking over the Democratic Party. We have evidence now every day. Yesterday, Jared Golden announced he would not be running for re-election in the state of Maine. He's a moderate, and he has no place in his party anymore. And then this morning, you saw the headline. Former Speaker Nancy Pelosi has now announced her retirement this morning. That is a very important sign that I hope that you all will delve into. Even the famous San Francisco liberal is not far left enough for the neo-Marxists. We commend her for her services. We all do, everyone who serves in Congress, but there should be a lot written about that. Fourth point I just want to make in the aftermath of Tuesday is that off-year election results in isolated places are never indicative of the upcoming midterm election. Don't read too much into that. You shouldn't. If you do, you're going to miss it. The GOP is in excellent position to win big next year. And when I say I'm bullish about the midterms, we absolutely are, and there's a lot of reasons for that. This is not groundless optimism. It's based on facts. The reason we're in such a great position is because we are united. And while the Democrats engage in their emerging civil war, Republicans are going to continue to work and deliver for all the new voters that we brought into the party last fall in 2024. There was a true demographic shift in that election, as you know. Record number of Hispanic and Latino voters, Black and African American voters, Jewish voters, union workers, urban voters, young people. And while they say that there's this big swell of enthusiasm of young people based on what happened in New York City Tuesday night, I would give to you Exhibit A on our side. Maybe you're not noticing, but the turning point events at college campuses all around the country are setting records for attendance. You have hundreds of thousands of new young people weekly coming into the movement that are enthusiastic, young conservatives who are looking for truth, who believe in America's founding principles, and who want to be engaged. And they will be engaged in next year's midterms. The third reason is we got a very favorable map. You shouldn't miss this either. I was very bullish even before the current redistricting battles began. As we sit here today, there are 13 House Democrats sitting in districts that President Trump won. There's another 21 of them in districts he came within 5 points of winning. There's only three, conversely, there's only 3 House Republicans sitting in districts that Kamala Harris won. That's a lopsided map. And after redistricting, we think we'll net a few more seats, handful, maybe 6 to 8. We're in very good position to make history and grow this majority. And finally, I'll just leave you with this. The reason we're so enthusiastic about running next year is we have a real record to run on. Mondami and Democrats want to talk about affordability. We love that subject. We love it. Look at the facts. I brought some this morning. It's the Republicans who are working every day to make life more affordable for working families. And it's not a talking point for us. We are delivering. After 4 long years of skyrocketing prices under the Biden administration, we had to take over. You don't flip a switch and reverse that overnight. It takes a while to work those policies out of the system and to get the new ones in. President Trump and Republicans are delivering results for the American people that they can see and feel. To date, we've seen core inflation is nearing its lowest level in 4 years. Gas prices have fallen to a 4-year low. Prices for everyday goods continue to decline, and blue-collar workers are seeing the largest increase in wage growth in nearly 6 decades. That's the result of our policies. In Congress, House Republicans are working hand in hand with President Trump to advance his affordability agenda. It is President Trump who ran on that. It's President Trump who's delivering on that. And we are all partners in that new effort to make America great again. It begins with the economy, and we know that. We're laser focused on making a difference in the lives of hardworking American families. Here's another demonstration, the Working Families Tax Cut. It is aptly named. It's the largest tax cut in U.S. history for working and middle-class Americans. You got Bernie Sanders running around. They're talking about the billionaires. It's not this. That's the opposite of the truth. Look at the facts. That bill was written for lower and middle-class earners. and they are the ones that will feel the positive effects going into next year. We included in that, as you know, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, real tax relief for seniors. These are the kinds of things that people feel, and they see that we're making good on our promises. We've made historic investments in American energy dominance to drive down the cost of gasoline and groceries. And we're grounding every decision we make in common sense. That's what we restored. That's what we ran on. That's what we're delivering. A return to common sense, not the woke progressive nonsense that they delivered for 4 years, not the spending like drunken sailors that drove cost up for everything with inflation. We're restoring common sense, fiscal responsibility. We're good stewards of taxpayer dollars, and we're refusing to cave right now, today, to the Democrats' wild demand to spend $1.5 trillion in new spending. That is taxpayer dollars, that's your money, that they want to spend to reopen the government. That's their counterproposal. That's why we're not having a negotiation with them. It's ridiculous. Included in the $1.5 trillion that they want to spend is $200 billion, almost $200 billion, to restore health care benefits to illegal aliens. That is taxpayer money that they want to spend for that. They want to send billions of dollars back overseas for social programs in foreign countries. We're not doing that. They want to give $500 million back to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting to prop up left-leaning news organizations. We're not doing that. And by the way, in the middle of all this, they want to cut $50 billion from the Rural Hospital Fund. They can't tell you they care about health care since they put that in their proposal. We're grounding every decision in common sense, and Democrats had their chance. When they controlled Washington, look at the history, don't forget it. This was just a year ago. You know what we inherited? They left us with a 40-year high inflation, higher taxes and energy prices, and massive instability around the world. And what did they do in June of this year? This is the most recent history no one can forget. They voted against no tax on tips. They voted against no taxes on Social Security. They voted against a larger child tax credit. The Democrats in the House and Senate voted against lower energy prices, against more American manufacturing and jobs, and against lowering health care premiums by 12%. That provision, the cost sharing reduction provision, was in the House version of the Working Families Tax Cut, the big beautiful bill. We sent it over to the Senate, and they worked to strike it out of the bill. Ask the Senate Democrats about that. Right now, they've created another mess. They've created a mess for America with this pointless government shutdown. The Democrats will tell you that they're feeling emboldened. They're feeling emboldened because they had a few blue state election results. It does not change the fact that they have walked their party off a cliff with no parachute and no path forward. The reason we're stuck right now is because of one simple fact. If they vote to reopen the government, the Senate Democrats are afraid that the radicals in their party will say that they caved. They're afraid of the retribution that will come from that. But if they keep the government shut down, they know very well, as we all do, that millions of Americans will continue to suffer as essential services remain unfunded and paychecks to federal workers continue to stay stalled. So our question for Democrats this morning is this: which constituency matters more? The loud radicals in your party or the hardworking American people? I can tell you which side the Republicans are on. 15 times we voted for the hardworking American people. And 15 times so far, the Democrats in Congress have voted for the radicals in their party. It is unconscionable to us that they've allowed it to go on this long. And at some point, all you can do is pray that common sense prevails. And that's what I've been doing a lot of. We hope and pray that there are still Democrats out there. There's just a handful. We need 5 more votes. 5 centrist, common sense Democrats in the Senate to come to those senses and do the right thing. It's time for them to put their country first. I'm delighted to introduce the next speaker, and he's a congressman from Miami. He's a former mayor of the county down there, and he has been in charge. He served as a police officer, but he was the chief of the fire department down there. I mean, the guy's resume is longer than almost anybody in Congress, and as a son of a firefighter, I always take personal delight in reminding everybody he's the only career firefighter paramedic in Congress. He's doing a great job, and he serves as vice chairman of the Republican Governance Group, one of our largest and most active caucuses I mentioned, and we're truly grateful to have him here to discuss some of these consequences of the government shutdown. Glad to have you. Carlos, come on up.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And if you indulge me, I think you brought me up here to talk about the shutdown, but I will stray a little bit. I'm the only Cuban-born member of Congress. That means I was born in Cuba. I was not born here in the United States. I didn't speak a word of English until I got here. I was 7 years old. And the reason I'm here is that my parents brought me here seeking freedom. Freedom from communism, freedom from a Marxist regime. And so I can tell you that I know a communist and a Marxist when I see one. They may call themselves socialists, they may call themselves a democratic socialist, but make no mistake, Mondami in New York, he's a Marxist. And the thing that bothers me is he's very proud to say, well, I'm young, I'm this, I'm that, I'm Muslim. I understand you can be proud of that. But then, if you're so proud, don't call yourself a democratic socialist. You are a Marxist. Go ahead. Tell people exactly who you are. He couldn't, and he can't because he knew he wouldn't get elected. But I hope that the people of New York do not suffer the same consequences that my homeland of Cuba has suffered. Castro and the Castro regime destroyed my homeland. They can't even keep the lights on. They don't have food, they don't have medicine, they can't keep the lights on. It's a total disaster of an island, a beautiful island that actually had the second highest standard of living in the Western Hemisphere when the regime took over. And so one of the reasons I'm in Congress, the primary reason I'm in Congress, is that I want to make sure that my children and grandchildren never suffer the same fate that my parents did, having to leave their country and bring us to a new country with about $10 in their pocket. Now, that's what makes this country great. My parents came here with $10 in their pocket and a watch. By the way, I still have that watch. All right. And here I am. Their son was a firefighter. He was a city manager. He was a county commissioner, county mayor of the largest county in the state of Florida, and now a member of Congress. I don't think there's too many countries that you can say that can happen. That's why I love this country. That's why I will fight for this country. And again, I know a Marxist when I see one. And it's unfortunate that the Democrat Party is heading that way, which means we just have to fight that much harder. Here to talk about the shutdown. And so, I'm Congressman Carlos Jimenez again. I represent the state of Florida, Miami, and the Keys. Today I'm standing in for my friend, RG2 Chairman David Valadao of California, with one clear message, and I want to thank also the other members of RG2 that are here. The Republican Governance Group focus has always been about governing responsibly. RG2 is committed to putting results ahead of rhetoric, keeping the government functioning, and finding practical, common sense solutions that improve the lives of the American people. That's what we're here to do. And that means that we do what's right, even when it's hard. Yes, we're here on day 37 of the Democrat government shutdown, and with each passing day, more Americans are feeling the impact. The effects in my hometown or in my state. In my home state of Florida, 155,000 federal employees have not received their paychecks. Close to 2 million Floridians who rely on SNAP, including more than 1 million children, will not be getting their benefits. My colleagues on the other side insist we have chosen, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have chosen politics over food security for millions of Americans. Small business loans are being delayed, totaling nearly $300 million in missed distributions, costing our state an estimated $1.7 billion in economic benefit alone. Starting Friday, 10% of the American airspace is going to be reduced because of the shutdowns ahead of the busy holiday season. More than 3,500 flights will either be delayed or canceled altogether. That's true effect of this shutdown. Let me be clear, holding the government hostage is not a responsible way to negotiate policy. On September 19th, the House of Representatives voted to extend government funding to keep the government open. And as the Speaker said, with a clean CR. There were no riders in it. There's no policy differences. It's actually a Biden budget, right? And so, you know, what is the problem? No, there is no problem. It's politics. That's the problem. Meanwhile, Senate Democrats have voted 14, now you say 15 times to keep the government closed. The funding bill before the Senate is the same short-term continuing resolution that we passed 15 times under President Biden with bipartisan support. And I supported each and every one of them to keep the government open. And I know that most, if not all, the members of RG2 also voted for the CRs to keep the government funded. We can and should debate serious issues like healthcare costs, but not at the expense of hardworking American families. I urge my Senate Democrat colleagues to pass the continuing resolution so that we can reopen the government and return to the table to negotiate real solutions. History shows that when Congress works together, we can find solutions without inflicting pain on the American people. I urge Senate Democrats again to reopen the government, end the suffering, and then join us in crafting meaningful bipartisan policy meant to improve the lives of everyday Americans. That's how we govern responsibly, and that's how we serve the American people. And I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity, and I guess now I want to turn the dais over to our Majority Leader, Steve Scalise.
Well, thank you, Carlos. What an honor it is to follow my dear friend Carlos Jimenez, who really is the epitome of the American dream. You know, when you hear stories like his, you know, sad stories, the root of it, you know, having to flee your home country because Cuba fell to Marxism, to communism. But luckily, for people like Carlos, all around the world, there's one place that they can look to if they want a North Star. If they still believe in freedom, they yearn for that desire, and then it fails in their home country, they can look to the United States because the United States represents freedom all around the world. And how dangerous of a position that is when Marxists from within try to change it here, try to unravel what makes America so great. And as Carlos came to seek that freedom that millions others have as well, like my great-grandparents who came from Italy to seek that same freedom. Ronald Reagan said it best: freedom is only one generation away from extinction if we don't fight to defend it. Those words of Reagan still ring true today because, Carlos, we will continue to fight for freedom. But it's not an empty fight. There are people on the other side here in America that are pushing back, that want to destroy that capitalist free market system. And so when you look at the results of the election, anybody that wants to go celebrate a blue state voting blue, what they're not acknowledging is what happened in a city like New York. It reverberates. When New York elects a Marxist as their mayor, there are other Democrats that are now looking and saying, does the Democrat Party represent me anymore? And today you heard it again. Democrats are the ones who are looking and saying that they're done with the Democrat Party. Jared Golden yesterday announced he's not going to run again. And he didn't just say he wasn't going to run again because he got tired of serving in Congress. I think it's really important to pay attention to what Jared Golden said. And he is in a swing district. Jared Golden is one of those moderate Democrats who represents maybe the old Democrat Party now, what was discarded by the voters on Democrat cities and states. But it's not where America is. So when Jared Golden announced yesterday he's not going to run again, he said, quote, "We're allowing the most extreme pugilistic elements of our party to call the shots. Just look again at the shutdown. For as long as I can remember, we have opposed shutting down the government over policy disputes. We criticized Republicans for taking hostages this way." That was Jared Golden explaining why he's done with being a Democrat in Congress. And when the Democrat Party no longer stands for common sense, for members that do on occasion reach across the aisle, they're going to be relegated to a scrap heap of history, because America is not a socialist nation. While the Democrat Party has turned their leadership structure over to a socialist, it's not where America is. And if they're running people like Jared Golden out of their party, they can go celebrate the results of last night's election. Again, if Alabama held an election also Tuesday, and gee whiz, a Republican governor was elected governor of Alabama, would anybody be writing a story about it? Of course not. So let them go celebrate New Jersey electing a Democrat governor, New York City electing a Democrat. The real concern is that the Cuomo wing of the Democrat Party got destroyed by the Mondami wing of the Democrat Party. And if they want to call that a victory, good luck. Something tells me they're not going to be sending Mondami to swing districts around America. He's not going to Maine. Let Mondami go to Maine for that now open seat in Congress, a 50-50 district. Will they be sending Mondami to those kind of swing districts? Colorado, where somebody like Gabe Evans represents, is Mondami going to be going there? Because that's where their party is now headed. And they chose that. But America is not embracing that form of socialism. We know what you get from socialism. You get the promises of free everything. But Americans know innately there's no such thing as a free lunch. All you end up with, the results, are the hollow promises and the failures that come with those promises, because you know you get what you pay for. And somebody else is going to have to pay for that free thing. And a lot of those rich people they love denouncing are leaving. Many have already left. So even when they go raise taxes even more with the highest rates you can imagine, who's going to pay those higher rates? It's not going to be the millionaires and billionaires. Many of them have already left. It's going to be hardworking families in New York City. Good news for you, you might be making $100,000 a year. By the way, a police officer married to a school teacher makes more than that in New York City. They're going to be the quote-unquote rich who get the higher taxes and the free buses and the grocery stores that are run by the government with empty shelves and expired food. That's what they're going to get. But the rest of America is not going to have it. So while Democrats keep the government shut down, and they brag about it, I mean, you heard Senator Murphy yesterday, quote, "I think we're in an enormously strong position right now." Strong position? What's so strong about taking food out of the mouths of 42 American families? What is strong about that, Senator? Sure, you can vote again today to keep the government shut down, but there's nothing strong about denying food to people who are low income and who can't afford it. That's a weak place to be. But that's what they're bragging about. When, as we saw, the transportation secretary yesterday said 10% of flights are going to have to be cut back because we don't have enough air traffic controllers because Democrats chose not to pay them. And so people are getting ready to go travel to see their family, hopefully, for Thanksgiving. But they're not going to be able to get that flight. They're going to have to leave a day or two earlier to drive. Maybe they won't be able to fly. But don't worry. Some Democrat senator thinks he's in a stronger position because he's now leveraged Americans as pawns in some game. That's what they think this is. It's disgusting. And the American people are catching on. And so while Democrats applaud socialism being the new wave of their party, the few common sense Democrats left in their party are leaving, running for the exits. Well, you might be able to leave New York City and go to Florida or Texas or somewhere else, but if they destroy America, there's nowhere else to go. That's why we're going to fight for freedom every single day, and their approach to Marxism, socialism, whatever you want to call it, will not prevail in America. Our whip, Tom Emmer.
It's day 37 of the Democrat government shutdown, and one thing has become clearer, more clear now than ever. The Democrat Party of today is not your grandparents' Democrat Party. They refuse to govern. They resort to hostage-taking when they don't get their way. They routinely put politics before people. And now they have made communists and assassination fantasizers the pillars of their party. Democrats claim they want to make life more affordable for hardworking Americans, but every time that they've had the majorities in Congress and a Democrat president in the White House, they've done the exact opposite. Take the American Rescue Plan under Joe Biden, for example, which was later deemed by economic experts as the, quote, original sin that led to double-digit inflation. Or look at the Affordable Care Act, which is so unaffordable, they have to pay people to use it. The Democrats have no moral high ground to stand on when it comes to good governance. They don't know what it is. And when they claim that they're fighting for you, do not believe them. Because if this shutdown has taught us anything, it's that the Democrats will willingly inflict pain on the American people if they think it gives them political leverage. Their kamikaze politicians and their constituents deserve better. In stark contrast, however, Republicans have done our jobs. We passed a nonpartisan government funding bill out of the House over a month ago. All we need, as the Speaker said earlier, is just 5 Democrats in the Senate to grow a spine, stand up to the radicals in their party, and join us in getting our clean CR to the president's desk. Enough is enough. It's past time for Democrats to end the political games and reopen the government for the people they were elected to serve. Our conference chair, Lisa McClain.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. Again, here we are. Yesterday, Americans woke up to an unthinkable reality. And Carlos touched on it earlier. A communist was elected mayor in America's largest city. How did this happen? Ask yourself, how did this happen? It happened because a small socialist portion of this country took control of the Democrat Party. A party that is now apparently united behind a socialist agenda. And slogans always seem to start with the same word: free. Free food, free rent, free buses, right? I feel like I'm at an Oprah Winfrey show. You get a car and you get a car. Well, this isn't the Oprah Winfrey show. And like many of you, my parents taught me a really good lesson when I was young. Nothing is free. Everything comes with a cost. Absolutely nothing is free. We all learned that. Look no further than the Democrats' disastrous shutdown plan. They want to give free health care to illegals. Come to our country. We'll give you, illegally mind you, we'll give you free health care on the backs of hard-working Americans. And in demanding that, they're asking for $1.5 trillion in wasteful spending and a painful shutdown. A shutdown that has denied food assistance to 42 million American families. 42 million American families. A shutdown that has forced law enforcement to work without pay. But don't worry, I'm sure those law enforcement agents can go and get free food from their local grocery store, and somebody will pay their free rent, right? Yeah, I live in reality, not fantasy. The Democrats want to jeopardize our national security. And now, flights have been reduced by 10% at 40 of our major airports. I think air traffic, like when you get on a plane, what's next? Like your plane rides are going to be free too? I mean, why stop at food and buses? Let's just give everything free. It doesn't work like that, people. Nothing's free. Somebody is paying. And who pays? Anybody want to guess who pays? Hardworking taxpayers. American taxpayers. That's who pay. Nothing's free, right? Nothing is free. Look at your Republican leaders. Just compare and contrast. That's why we voted more than a month ago to actually fund the government. That's why we've been working in our districts to help those that are suffering. And that's why we are delivering real results that drive down gas prices and drive down mortgage rates and drive down the price of eggs. No one's reporting on the price of eggs anymore, right? Now, not for illegals, not for radicals, and not for communists who despise this country, but for the men and women who love America, like Carlos and his family who came over. And let's keep it that way, and let's make sure that we keep America strong every day. So to the Democrats, let me be clear. Republicans will still be there when your communist lawmakers aren't. And when your communist kingmakers finally give you permission to put Americans first again, Republicans will still be here. We'll still be here when your socialist experiment collapses, because it always does. And we'll still be standing shoulder to shoulder with the hardworking Americans who aren't demanding free groceries, free buses, free rent. No, we will be standing shoulder to shoulder, demanding nothing less than freedom. That is what Republicans demand, freedom. Because that's what makes this country great. Not socialism, not government control, but freedom. Thank you.
All right, questions? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
The Supreme Court, and specifically Justice Gorsuch yesterday, seemed concerned about the Trump administration's usurping congressional authority, calling it a, quote, one-way ratchet that can't be turned back. What's your response to that? Are the justices right to be concerned that Congress isn't fulfilling its constitutional obligations?
I don't find myself in disagreement with Justice Gorsuch too often, but I think he's missed the mark on this one. First of all, I don't think you should read too much into the questioning that you heard at the Supreme Court. I mean, this is part of judicial review. It's a cherished part of that tradition. I used to be one of those litigators. I did constitutional law, oral argument, and I would have liked to have argued that case yesterday, because I think the law is clearly on the side of what the administration has done. I'll remind you that I'm a jealous guardian of Article 1. You know, the legislative branch of government in our constitutional system is the most important. It was placed first in prominence. And that's true. And while Congress has a role to play in tariffs and related trade and economic policy, the executive branch does as well. And I think the president has used that well within the bounds of what he's allowed to do, because he's addressing what was truly a crisis for the country. The trade disparity had gone on for decades. It was creating a real imbalance, and it was adversely affecting American people and consumers. Remember that he ran on this idea. He talked about tariffs on the campaign trail, and he got a popular and electoral college mandate in the election. So this is not some surprise. He's fulfilling the promise that he was elected to fulfill, in a literal sense. So I think the court has to give deference to that. I think the court has to recognize the executive is doing what they're doing. He's using tariffs to create leverage in our trade strategy, and it is yielding great results for the American people. And heaven forbid if it were reversed, because it would create chaos, which is one of the questions I think Justice Barrett asked, my old friend from Louisiana. I mean, that was an important question, because it would set back all of the strategy and the trade agreements and a lot of the things that have been accomplished for the people. So in summary, I would say, don't read too much into the questions. This is how the process works. I'm sure the court will look at this very carefully and deliberately, as they do, and I expect that we'll have a majority of the court that says that this administration is doing what they have the legal authority to do. If I felt like the executive branch had overstepped its bounds on trade or on the tariffs or something, I would have stepped in. I mean, that's my job as the Speaker of the House over the legislative branch. I would have done it in my own way, to be candid. I would have gone to the president privately and said, hey, sir, enough. I think you're overstepped the bounds. Let's try to figure that out. I wouldn't have publicly had a big spat with him, because it wouldn't have been necessary. But that conversation didn't happen, because I believe that what he's done is well within the bounds. And so we'll see what the court does. Yes.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. Leader Thune has said on a number of occasions that in exchange for reopening the government, he will promise Democrats a vote on ACA subsidies by a date certain. Will you do the same in the House?
He promised it a long time ago, and he was rebuffed. I mean, that's not what this is about. I mean, they've demonstrated over and over and over. Somebody said this is the Seinfeld shutdown. It's about nothing. If you brought in 100 Senate and House Democrats right now and said, what is it about? They wouldn't even give you the same answer. They don't even know. They filed a counter proposal that's $1.5 trillion in new spending with all the crazy abuses that I listed earlier today. That's still sitting out there. That's the counter proposal. Then they tried to say it was about health care. That was never the issue for the September 30th fiscal cliff. That was always a December issue. We always knew, everybody in the building knew, we were going to have to wrestle through that and come to a consensus on a solution on the COVID-era Obamacare subsidies in October, November, December. And ironically, they're eating up all the clock where that would have been done. It's not about any of this. It's about politics, as we explained earlier. They are more afraid of the radical activists who are running the Democratic Party right now than they are of starving families, having families go hungry and having federal workers go without paychecks. That's just a simple fact. So yes, Leader Thune has been over backwards. He's offered them a vote. You know what they told him in response? No, we need you to guarantee the outcome of that vote. Well, that's ridiculous. That can't be done. No, because we did our job, and I'm not part of the negotiation. The House did its job on September 19th. I'm not promising anybody anything. I'm going to let this process play out. I'll tell you what they wanted. I'll tell you what Schumer and Jeffries wanted. In fact, Chuck Schumer said it publicly and decried that Thune and I would not go in a back room with them and make a four corners agreement on Obamacare subsidies. And I said, there's no way. That it was never possible or appropriate for that to be handled on a CR, on a short-term stopgap funding measure. And he knows that. And we're not doing that anymore. We're not taking four corners, four leaders in a back room and making a deal and hoisting it upon the people. I'm not going to be a part of that. Chuck Schumer is part of the old way this was done, and that's part of the reason why people have such a lack of trust in Congress. We need to be transparent, open. We need to do it through the process. We need to involve and engage all of our caucuses and all of our members in this discussion. Healthcare is very complicated. It is very complex, and it is not something four people can go in a smoke-filled room in the back and make a deal on. I reject it. Yes. Look, I've spoken with the president about it. I reminded him, as I said this morning, this was not a surprise to us. I mean, blue states elected blue leaders. I mean, yeah, so what? I mean, it would have been a huge headline if we could have had an upset there, but that was to be expected. As Leader Scalise said, I mean, you know, if the three big elections yesterday would have been in, you know, Louisiana, Alabama, and Texas, you'd have a totally different narrative, right? Or name any red state. It just so happened that those were the blue states. That was the blue outcomes. That's what everybody expected. I don't read too much into that. Yes, front row. Morning.
Two questions. One, about the shutdown, you said 48-hour notice for the House to return. Does that include this weekend? And then a question for you and for Chairwoman McClain. Egg prices are no longer in the headlines, but food prices themselves have still been going up. Grocery prices are still going up. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, but the USDA has reported, and all of the economists have shown, food prices always go up. There's an inflationary level that's built into grocery prices, but they're going up at a much slower pace. In other words, the economic policies, even though all the provisions of the Working Families Tax Cut have not yet been implemented, that's going to make a dramatic effect. It's going to be like jet fuel to the economy. We have all these pro-growth policies that will bring down costs, increase wages, increase jobs, and more access to the economic rung so that more people can climb up the ladder. But in the meantime, even the fact that we have made these positive steps and momentum, grocery prices are rising at their slowest level in many years. You should look into that. So, I mean, that is an exhibit C, and the argument that it's Republican policies that are the only thing that's going to bring that down. The reason that your grocery prices are so high, it's multifaceted. But it's because we had 4 years of Bidenomics. Remember when they tried to tell you that Bidenomics was so good for you and your family, and everybody went, what are you talking about? That's part of the reason we shellacked them in the election last fall, because they were trying to sell you a bill of goods that wasn't true. And the reason that inflation rose is because, as was noted earlier, the big signature pieces of legislation that they passed in the Biden administration were disastrous for the economy. And it made inflation rise rapidly. Why? Because when you pour more dollars into the economy, that is the effect. It's just as sure as gravity. It's basic economics. And the Marxists and the socialists who are taking over the Democratic Party turn a blind eye to the reality of basic economics. And you're going to see the effects of that as well. Yes?
This weekend. To the election results in these blue states, but there
No, I do believe that the demographic shift that we were able to see and experience in the 2024 election will hold. I believe that large numbers of those new voters and these demographics that have not traditionally been with the Republican Party are with us. I will point you to the study that the Democrats themselves paid for that came out, a week or so ago, and they had, I think, hundreds of thousands of respondents to these polls. And the Democrats determined in their own analysis that they are regarded as weak, woke, and out of touch with the people, okay? That's why they lost last November, and that's why they're going to lose this coming November, okay? As Carlos Jimenez said, as a Cuban who came here, his family immigrated here, he came here when he was 7. This is the American dream. I know that the Hispanic and Latino populations across this country understand which party is delivering for them, and they're going to feel that positive effect. They're going to feel increased wages and more opportunity, and before they get to that election next fall. And that's why we did the big, beautiful bill, the Working Families Tax Cut, so early in the year, because we wanted that to really take hold after the beginning of the year so that people will feel that. And we're convinced they will, and I think that's going to inure to our benefit. Thank you all so much.
You put 1X for each foot.
1X.
Weird that he'd stand right behind the microphone.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. I just was like, I'm never here, you know, never. What's happening? What's happening, everyone? All right, that's what I thought. Thank you, sorry. Okay, all right, thanks. Yeah, Jake.
Yes, ma'am.
So I confirmed with our team too, like what I thought
It does go
was a
straight.
home run.
No, yeah. No,
I mean, it was for a while
No,
in that.
no, you're right. No,
city cover.
you're absolutely correct because that was one of the last things we want to get rid of. I remember now.
Yeah, and it was a temporary like fix. Yeah.
Thanks, Kim.
Yep. I can't remember what was going on. You think just double checking, you're good.
Yes, ma'am.
It was that day, day of the Supreme Court.
I just wanted to see your last screenshot.
John.
My table is anyway. And I'm like, and they're like, and where's the public? They don't like points and accommodate 46 hours. No, they don't care. It's very just.
Of course, makes sense.
But you're not thinking that in this state.
Josh is for it? No, exactly.
And I'm like fighting.
This is a nice roomy spot.
They're like, no, freedom just going to be included in the signature. I'm like,
Oh, okay. Yeah, the freelance guys, we're just going to get 5 of us together.
but then they're like, well, the freelancers, they have to, they want us to get a photo. The signature have to be another so now we're forcing people who are so that they can submit the photo of their team.
Surprised they didn't get it.
And then they're like, no, you could be included in the photo. I know, but what if
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Slow over.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if for a second of the time. One camera, 5 Mark 3 or 4.
Yeah.
I had 24 to 105.
That's what I was trying to say.
70 to 300.
So that's 5 people.
Right, because I'm not going to help my father, but I don't know why.
Yeah.
I guess I know what it is.
They think it's going to work because people are going to be like, why should I join? I'm not one of the big ones. Manny.
That's how freelancers are pretty few. I said last night.
But stabilization got so much better on a daily basis. No.
You're talking about this year, too.
Yeah, it's a little bit slow.
We need to come up.
You never, it's etiquette. You never have flags and even numbers. You have to have odd numbers and flags. I guess they didn't know that. The Democrats don't want to.
What happened to the raising the price?
They're like the ideas to encourage organizations to support like
What happened to the increase in the
and I say it this way.
all around, try to
I want to know. Yeah. Not that they have to. Because these guys, it's their first time.
Okay, but yeah, we need to send out.
No, we'd rather.
Okay.
Now we do that.
I'm like, why was yesterday everyone
The weeks are long because they went above us. Why not? Kim, are we on time?
Ish.
Are we on time?
Ish. I'll be yelling at them.
They really want to pay their
Well, that's been, right? It's this counter, yeah, that's been exactly it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Why don't we just have an award for kitty covers? And it can be like kitty covers on the hill, kitty covers on the water.
Are you ready?
No,
Okay.
See him do this where he
Yeah.
he's taking it on. When she yells heads up, that is the
Yeah. I'll go down.
Tell man, I'm like,
Yeah. Try to stay right.
I just want to see where this bomb's coming from.
So, he was just, he brought in from that,
Testing. 1, 2, 1, 2.
So I kind of, this was very fun. So when he arrives out of HC, he says, he said, I just saw this documentary on Reagan last night, and your father had some very interesting things to say. Say it, and then he laughed. I'm thinking, Chris. So I'm thinking,
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Testing.
Maybe that's a little weird, but okay, whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
but because but that's a, so I have this running joke with my dad. That I still say, you were on that documentary, and you had some really interesting insights about
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Testing.
Guys, he's moving, so we just have to make sure we're a little switched over.
that's funny. I have a bright white light right there.
I'm happy I found these lights. That's my first
Once I put on my glasses.
Crystal.
And plus, the whole ethic of somebody earning an award because of what their colleagues did. Is Ernst on the contest committee?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, no.
No, he's on both.
On what committee? Contest committee.
There should be a shutdown. Just the people speaking of programs.
Why should people who benefit from it have a vote on it?
Heads up, guys.
Thank you.
What's going on the X?
Dive.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Nancy D'Alessandro Pelosi will go down in history as the greatest speaker of all time. Her tenure has been iconic, legendary, historic, and transformational. The incredible pieces of legislation that she has moved into law through her brilliance, her wisdom, and her incredible grasp of how to get things done for the American people is too numerous to list right now, but it includes the Affordable Care Act, the American Rescue Plan, the PACT Act to provide health care to our veterans, the CHIPS and Science Act that has brought domestic manufacturing jobs back to the United States of America, and of course, the Inflation Reduction Act, which included the largest investment in combating the climate crisis in the history of the world. As a result of Nancy Pelosi's historic tenure, the nation is better off today than the one she found upon her arrival in 1987. It's been an honor and a privilege to be able to serve with her, work with her, be mentored by her, learn from her, and get things done for the American people alongside her historic tenure as Speaker. This is day 37 of the Trump Republican shutdown, and the position of House Democrats remains the same. We will not support a partisan Republican spending bill that continues to gut the health care of the American people. We're ready, we're willing, we're able to sit down with our Republican colleagues anytime, any place, in order to reopen the government, to find a bipartisan path forward, and to decisively address the Republican health care crisis that continues to crush people all across the country. Tens of millions of Americans who are in the open enrollment period right now are seeing their premiums, copays, and deductibles skyrocket, in some cases, by $1,000 or $2,000 per month. That is unsustainable, particularly in this country right now, which is experiencing an affordability crisis. Life has gotten more expensive under Donald Trump and Republican policies. This is from a group of people led by Donald Trump who promised that costs were going to go down on day one. Costs haven't gone down in America. Costs are through the roof. Housing costs are up. Grocery costs are up. Child care costs are up. Electricity bills are skyrocketing. And now, because of the Republican refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, health care premiums are going to drive some people into medical bankruptcy, and tens of millions of folks won't be able to provide a doctor when they need one. That's why we have to decisively address the Republican health care crisis. And that's why we need Donald Trump to show some leadership. Stop hiding. Show some leadership. Direct Mike Johnson and John Thune, both of whom work for you. Donald Trump is the puppet master of congressional Republicans. Show some leadership, direct them to sit down so we can authentically enter into a bipartisan negotiation and end this Republican madness now. Questions? Michael?
Leader Thune said this morning that the reason that Democrats won't agree to pass the CR that's on the spending before the Senate right now is because House Democrats are pressuring Senate Democrats to continue to hold out for political reasons. What's your response to the suggestion that it's because of your caucus that Senate Democrats refuse to support the CR that's been voted down for?
Under the leadership of Chuck Schumer, Senate Democrats have been brave and courageous in standing up for the health care of the American people. The Republican health care crisis is not a made-up thing. It is devastating people all across this country, in rural America, urban America, working class America, small town America, suburban America, the heartland of America, and in black and brown communities throughout America. It's not a made-up thing, the Republican health care crisis. As Marjorie Taylor Greene continues to acknowledge, it's a real thing. The largest cut to Medicaid in American history. 14 million people or so are going to lose their health insurance because of what Republicans did in their one big ugly bill. Hospitals and nursing homes and community-based health centers are closing as we speak all across America, including in Louisiana. Mike Johnson and Steve Scalise could care less. They're doing in their own constituents. These things are happening because of the Republican health care crisis. This country actually faces the largest cut to Medicare, $536 billion, in American history, unless Congress acts by the end of the year, because of what Republicans did in their one big ugly bill. And now, since Republicans refuse to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, tens of millions of Americans are seeing their health insurance premiums skyrocket, making seeing a doctor for themselves, their children, and their families unaffordable. At the same period of time, in these appropriations bills, Republicans are trying to gut the Centers for Disease Control and the National Institute of Health and undermine the ability of everyday Americans to actually receive vaccines. This Republican health care crisis is real. That's why House Democrats are standing up for the American people. It's not a partisan thing. It's a patriotic thing. That's why Senate Democrats are standing up for the American people. Not a partisan thing, a patriotic thing. We have to decisively address the Republican health care crisis. And John Thune is divorced from reality. I mean, it's a clown show over in the Senate. 14, 15 times you bring the same partisan Republican spending bill to the Senate floor, expecting a different result. That's the classic definition of legislative insanity. Doing the same thing over and over and over again, has no ability to actually negotiate in good faith. And this has gone on week after week after week.
Mr. Leader, thank you. Good morning. I understand the Democrats' concerns about health care and the arguments that you've made about that. But do you think at some point with the crisis in the aviation industry, cutting off these flights, people concerned about air safety, air traffic controllers not getting paid, do you think that the air question will pivot some of your members and say, we have to open up the government because we're worried about people flying?
We want to immediately reopen the government. We want to find a bipartisan path forward to enacting a spending agreement that actually meets the needs of the American people and actually drives down the high cost of living. What about what happened on Tuesday? Do Republicans not understand? They got wiped out all across America because they've made this country too expensive, and they failed to do anything about the affordability crisis. And as Democrats, our position is simple, and we're doing this for everybody. Whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, an independent, we're doing this for everybody. We have to lower the high cost of living in the United States of America. And we have an opportunity to try to do it with respect to health care. But the Republicans refuse to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. On the aviation safety issue, we need a full and complete briefing so we can understand from the administration what the current status is, what the impact of administration layoffs have been prior to the Trump Republican shutdown, because the administration has been going after the FAA since the beginning of their time in office, since January 20th. And we need to understand how we got to this moment, separate and apart from the Trump Republican shutdown. The problem is, it's like impossible to have a congressional briefing with House Republicans on vacation. 6 consecutive weeks they've canceled votes. I mean, it causes you to answer or ask the question, is there such a thing as a 4-ring circus? Because it's a circus right now, in the House, in the Senate, across the country with Republicans, and certainly at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Mr. Leader, did the former speaker notify you of her decision to retire, and does her retirement signal a shift in generational leadership for Democrats?
Yes to the first question. To the second question, we are all proud to stand on the shoulders of Nancy D'Alessandro Pelosi. It's been a great honor for me to be able to serve with legendary members of Congress from the very beginning of my time in office. And that, of course, includes, right at the top of the list, Nancy D'Alessandro Pelosi, or John Lewis, or Charlie Rangel, Elijah Cummings, Eddie Bernice Johnson, John Dingell. We can go through the list. These are legendary members of Congress. And, of course, right at the top of that list is Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi.
Speaker Johnson says he won't even guarantee a vote on the ACA issue. Could you react to that?
Well, Mike Johnson has claimed over the last several weeks that Republicans are the party of health care. That's a joke. Why does this guy keep lying to the American people? Week after week after week, it's a new story. Because for several weeks, we were told that Republicans had a health care plan, and that Republicans had planned all along to address the Affordable Care Act issue, and the fact that these tax credits for working class Americans, middle class Americans, and everyday Americans are about to expire. And Republicans can't be bothered. This from a group of people who somehow found $40 billion to bail out their right-wing dictator friend in Argentina. $40 billion to put Argentina first. Not America first. Republicans have put Argentina first. And they can't find a dime to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. This is part of the reason why Republicans were rejected all across the country. Pummeled, shellacked, beaten down electorally all throughout America because they have failed to address the affordability crisis. And instead, everything that these Republicans do, including their one big ugly bill, is about providing massive tax breaks to their billionaire donors and subsidize the lifestyles of the rich and shameless.
Thank you, Leader Jeffries. With Speaker Emerita Pelosi not seeking re-election, this coincides with Mayor-elect Mamdani in New York City. So as he is on the shoulders of Speaker Emerita Pelosi and looking ahead, how will you work with him to make New York City better?
Well, as I've indicated, it's incumbent upon all of us, everybody in New York City, to make sure that the mayor-elect is successful. People who supported him and people who did not support him. There's a time for politics and there's a time to govern. And when the mayor-elect is inaugurated on January 1st, it's a time to govern.
Just going off of that question then, how would you advise the mayor-elect to approach the president in how Trump has been threatening to withhold federal funds from New York? I guess how would you advise him to go about handling?
Yeah, those private conversations will remain private, but we are not going to let any toxic president, attack the people of the city of New York.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. So you're saying that you want a bipartisan deal and that you have to address health care. I just want to clarify with you then. What you want is an ACA subsidy extension to be either in a CR or a legislation that will get a vote and will pass?
We're not going to negotiate the specifics in public, but as we've repeatedly said, we have to decisively address the Republican health care crisis, and that begins with dealing with the Affordable Care Act tax credits.
To build off of that, would you see, because it seems conversations are continuing over on the Senate side, at least amongst the rank and files, about would you see a standalone ACA vote as a cave, and what is your advice to those rank and file members?
What we have repeatedly said as House Democrats is that we will consider anything in good faith that is sent over to us from the Senate in a bipartisan way. but it has to have a path toward decisively addressing the Republican health care crisis, beginning with an extension of the Affordable Care Act tax credits. Thanks. All right, lastly, let me just say, Trump has stunningly made the point that the economy in this country is going well. It ain't going well. Everyday Americans know that they are working hard, they are playing by the rules, and they cannot get ahead. They can barely get by. The cost of living in this country is way too high, and Republicans are clearly out of touch, focused solely on the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected. As Democrats, we're going to continue to work hard to drive down the high cost of living, to fix our broken healthcare system, and to clean up corruption, to deliver an America that works for working class people. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for your service.
He was on the X.
It's a good smell.
Do not step on the X.
What happens if we step on the X?
That's how kings think. That's not how elected officials in the United States are allowed to think. That they are infallible, that no one can ever criticize them. So that might sound crazy. Could Donald Trump really think criticizing the president is illegal? So just look at his record. Law firms, universities, protesters, journalists, all have faced this administration's wrath for their speech. The message is clear. If you dare to dissent, you have a target on your back. Consider President Trump's repeated attacks on broadcasters. Over and over again, he has urged the chairman of the Federal Communications Commission to revoke broadcasters' licenses for their speech. His allies, including Chairman Brendan Carr, have echoed those threats, even warning ABC and Disney that the FCC could, quote, do this the easy way or the hard way, over the political commentary of late-night host Jimmy Kimmel. Those are not jokes. These are threats. And when government officials use the power of their office to intimidate or silence speech, they assault the very fabric of our democracy. The resolution I bring forward today is simple. It is straightforward. It condemns any suggestion by President Trump or his administration that criticism of him is illegal. It reaffirms that the First Amendment protects the right to speak truth to power, including and especially to the most powerful person in our country. And it urges all Trump administration officials to refrain from using the machinery of government to punish or suppress dissent. This is not about partisanship. It is about principle. Presidents come, presidents go. But the First Amendment must endure. If we allow any president to wield government authority as a cudgel against speech, then no citizen's voice is safe in our nation. Not yours, not mine, not the press, not the public's. No one is safe. So I urge my colleagues to join me in sending a clear and bipartisan message. In the United States of America, it is not illegal to criticize the President of the United States. It is our constitutional right to be able to criticize the President. We have to give our support to our government to our nation 100% of our time. But we only have to support elected officials led by the president when they are right. That is what our country is all about. That's why we have a First Amendment. Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the consideration of Senate Resolution 486 submitted earlier today, and further that the resolution be agreed to, the preamble be agreed to, and that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate.
Is there objection?
Mr. President.
Senator from Florida.
Reserving the right to object. Mr. President, this is an interesting conversation, but Democrats have had 37 days to stop the most important issue that this Senate should be focused on right now, and that's this shutdown. But they clearly rather spend their time playing politics and attacking the president, and so instead of doing what's best for the American public. Democrats have caused the longest government shutdown in our nation's history. For one reason, they hate our president. They hate him. They don't care that their actions are stopping our troops, Capitol Police, federal law enforcement, air traffic controllers from getting their paychecks. They don't care that they're causing chaos and delays at our airports, or that 42 million people rely on SNAP benefits who can't put food on the table. Now, I think about growing up. I was blessed, had a wonderful mom, but we lived in public housing. I don't know my dad. She really struggled to put food on the table. In my state of Florida and all across the country, we have people worried about putting food on the table right now. Little kids are worried about getting a dinner tonight. And it's because the Democrats have decided to shut down our government. So I represent the people of Florida and Americans across this country who are sick and tired of these political games. What we ought to be doing is feed our families, pay the people that are working their tail off, and open our government. Therefore, I object.
Mr. President.
Objection is heard. Senator from Massachusetts.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, it is telling that the Republicans have objected with an unrelated bill. This is a classic Republican move. They're scared of supporting anything critical of Donald Trump, but they don't want to defend his actions at the same time. So they object and pivot to an unrelated issue. But don't be fooled. Senate Republicans just blocked a resolution stating that it's not illegal to criticize President Trump. I'm genuinely shocked that we can't agree that the First Amendment protects our right to criticize the president. This is, unfortunately, an era where Donald Trump wants to be king, and too many in the Republican Party are allowing him to believe that that is possible in a democracy with a Constitution and a First Amendment that guarantees the right of free speech and the right of freedom of the press. So with that, Mr. President, I yield back.
Mr. President.
Senator from Florida.
And I'm shocked that my colleague doesn't want to worry about the people, the 42 million people that are not getting SNAP benefits, the Capitol Police that are protecting us that aren't getting paid. These people have mortgages and they ought to get paid. So, Mr. President, I rise today with my bipartisan and common sense No Budget, No Pay Act. It's a simple proposal that says if members of Congress can't complete one of our basic jobs of funding the government, we shouldn't get paid. This shouldn't even be necessary. We should just do our jobs. But as we sit here over a month into the Democrat shutdown, it's clear we need something to hold Congress accountable. Every year we're tasked with putting together a budget with the expectation that it is on time and fits the needs of the American people. The American people elected us to come together. Look at what we're collecting in revenues and put together and pass 12 appropriation bills that use those dollars effectively. I was governor of Florida. Every year, we pass a budget and we balance the budget, and we did it on time. The last time Congress passed all 12 appropriation bills on time was, what's your guess? 3 decades ago. Congress has failed time and time again to do its most basic job. I came to the Senate to fix this. I ran on a plan to make Washington work better for families, which included my No Budget, No Pay Act. And I've been fighting to get this passed since I got here in 2019, and I've been met with resistance from many of my colleagues since I got up here. But unfortunately, Democrats have thrived in the dysfunction and have fought endlessly to keep the status quo. They passed massive spending bills after massive spending bill, which has caused massive inflation in this country. have raised taxes and expanded government. We have now Mr. President, how much debt do you think we have now? $38 trillion. We're running $2 trillion a year deficits. Now, they're using the same dysfunction to shut down our government. They're prioritizing a liberal wish list of the needs of the American people. And they're more than happy, it seems, to deprive federal workers, TSA, FAA, and law enforcement of their paychecks. While members of Congress still get their own paychecks. Democrats are happy to stop 40 million people from getting their SNAP benefits. I just can't imagine, the little kids worried about where their meals are going to come tonight. These Democrats voting to shut down government are still getting paid. We should not get paid if we don't do our job. There's a problem with Washington. Any working American will tell you that if you don't do your job, you don't get paid, except here. Members of Congress consistently fail one of our basic duties of funding the government on time and still get a paycheck, even when others don't. Senate Democrats have now voted against funding the government 14 times in the last 5 weeks. They voted time and time again to continue the longest shutdown in our nation's history and stopping people from getting paid. But they're still getting paid. Democrats shouldn't be shutting down the government and risking others' paychecks without being in the same boat. I ask every one of my colleagues to support passage of my no budget, no pay to tell every member, do your job, fund the government, or do what other people end up doing, forego your taxpayer-funded salary. I ask unanimous consent that the Committee on Homeland Security and Government Affairs be discharged from further consideration of S-88 and the Senate proceed to its immediate consideration. I further ask that the bill be considered, read a third time and passed, that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Is there objection?
Mr. President, I reserve the right to object.
Senator from Massachusetts.
And I agree with my colleague, for sure, that during a government shutdown, lawmakers should not be paid. And that's why I'm having my pay deferred during this period. But the real answer to this shutdown isn't to withhold pay from lawmakers. It's for Republicans to stop holding the health care of Americans hostage for millions of Americans, including 337,000 people in my home state. It's for the House Republicans to return here to Washington. They're in a political witness protection program right now, back in their home states. They should come here and negotiate on these issues. We're seeing the consequences of this Republican shutdown every day: reduced SNAP benefits, canceled flights, rising health care costs. So enough already. Let's sit down. We can open the government and protect the health care of all Americans with one vote on the floor. So my Republican colleagues, they're kind of twisting themselves into knots, trying to use the shutdown to block my free speech resolution. That is ridiculous. We should have the vote on free speech. And because of that, Mr. President, I object.
Objection is heard.
Mr. President.
Senator from Florida.
I want to commend my colleague for deferring his paycheck. I think it's the right thing to do. If he's willing to defer his paycheck, why wouldn't he allow my bill to pass that all of us should defer our paychecks until government gets open again? The right thing to do is open the government and figure out how do we improve our healthcare system. Our healthcare system is out of control. The costs are out of control. Obamacare has completely failed us. Remember when Obamacare was passed? President Biden said, oh, you won't lose your doctor. Biggest lie of the year. Oh, gosh, you're not going to lose your plan. You completely lost your plan. Oh, you're going to save $2,500 a family. No, your costs have skyrocketed. Your co-payments are up. Your deductibles are up. Your premiums have skyrocketed. And so what we've got to do is we need to sit down in a bipartisan manner and say, how do we actually fix the cost of health care? You don't do it by shutting down government and making sure our military doesn't get paid, our TSA doesn't get paid, our FAA doesn't get paid, our Capitol Police doesn't get paid, all of our federal workers don't get paid, and we prevent 42 million people from getting food stamps benefits. If we want to fix health care, which we should do on a bipartisan matter, we should sit down and do that once we open the federal government. So I'm disappointed that my colleague, I commend him for deferring his paycheck. It's the right thing to do, but we should do that for every member of Congress until we open our government. Thank you, Mr. President.
Motors CEO Mike Dustar for joining us today. Great, talented people. They make a lot of money. I looked at the money, but they're entitled to the money because the companies are doing very well. Along with Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Secretary Howard Lutnick. Do you take any of this stuff, Howard?
Not yet.
Okay, good. CMS Administrator Mehmet Oz, he doesn't take it. Food and Drug Administrator Commissioner Marty McCary, and Director of Medicare Chris Klump. And we have Steve, where's Steve? Is he here? Head of Public Relations for the White House. He's taking it. The United States is just 4% of the world's population and consumes only 13% of all prescription drugs, yet pharmaceutical companies make 75% of their profits from the American customer. I would say that's not so good, right? It's not exactly great. To address this chronic unfairness, I signed an executive order earlier this year instructing my administration to do everything in our power to implement most favored nations drug pricing, something that has been helped greatly by tariffs, because when nations refuse to do it, we should have put this in the case yesterday. I just say, well, if you're not going to do it, we're going to charge you a like amount of tariffs, and they immediately say, we'll do it, which means that Americans should pay no more than the lowest price offered anywhere in the world. So that you've heard for years the disparity where you'll pay $150 for a pill in New York and you'll pay $10 for a pill in London. Now you're going to pay $20 both, because the world is a little bit bigger than the U.S., so it goes up that way, but you'll pay $20 and $20. A tremendous advantage to our country after years of being abused by the world system. Already Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and EMD, Serrano, have agreed to drastically lower their prices for American patients, and today Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk are joining the phenomenal list of the most exciting announcements. I mean, nobody's ever had announcements like, and this has to do with other pharmaceutical products also, but we're covering this today because it's such a big seller. I guess it's the #1 selling thing there is today. These are two companies that behind the groundbreaking weight loss drugs that have helped millions of Americans struggling with obesity live better, longer lives, everything else. These are the two companies that really broke ground. Until now, neither of these two popular drugs have been covered by Medicare for weight loss, and they've only rarely been covered by Medicaid. They've often cost consumers more than $1,000 per month, and some a lot more than that. Americans have been spending as much as 520% more for Zepbound and 1,400% more for Wegovy than patients in Europe. Think of that. 1,400% more than a patient in Europe for the exact same box. And that ends starting today. The other countries are not happy with us. I don't think they like me too much, Bobby, but that's okay. Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk are committing to offer Zepbound and Wegovy at most favored nations rates for American patients. This will slash the cost of Wegovy from $1,350 a month to ultimately $250 a month. $1,350 to $250. Did I do a good job? They're gonna write about it. You know, they like to not write these things. And reduce, you think Biden could have done this? I don't think so. And reduce the monthly cost of Zepbound from $1,080 to $346. In addition, they're both committing that future GLP-1 weight loss drugs taken orally, which are currently under development, will be sold at no more than $149 per month. It's a massive, think of that. You go from $1,300 to $149 a month. We anticipate these new versions will be coming out in a very short period of time. All of these drugs will be available directly to the consumer at trumprx.gov. Trump, they want to use my name. Trump, it better be good. TrumpRx.gov, and I think it's turning out to be pretty amazing, right, us? Just as significantly, Medicare and Medicaid will finally cover the cost of these weight loss drugs for millions of patients suffering from obesity. Co-pays for Medicare patients will be as low as $50. This is tremendous savings. I mean, now you're talking about from $1,350 to $50. This is tremendous news for the American seniors. And you all remember when I had 1/8 of 1% for the year. I cut it 1/8, and I was so thrilled. But now we're cutting it 1,000%, 1,200%. Nobody's ever seen anything like this. Nobody else could have done it, but I say that modestly. In addition, you think it was easy dealing with these people? It wasn't. You think it was easy saying your drug, Mr. Eli Lilly, that we're selling for $1,300 is going to be sold for $250? You know the amazing thing, the stocks all went up. I mean, these guys they're fantastic. Because it's going to equalize the world. The world's a bigger place, and it's going to equalize. I was a little surprised to see that, but I'm happy about it. In addition, Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk have agreed to provide all of their other medications to Medicaid at most favored nations prices. Most favored nations, meaning that you will pay the lowest price anywhere in the world. That's what you're going to pay. Whereas before they paid low prices and we paid, thousands of percentile ahead more. And to sell these drugs to all consumers at deeply discounted prices via TrumpRx.com. When is TrumpRx.com opening?
The site is open. It will launch in terms of giving people prices before the end of the year.
Okay. Got to make sure it's successful. It's got my name on it. I don't want to be like so many others. I don't want to be like the train they're building in California, okay, which has about 15,000% cost overrun. Or the beautiful Obama building that he's building in Chicago for the museum, which is now shuttered up and dead. They got it up, and they couldn't finish. It's about, would you say, 5 years behind schedule? And about 2,000% over budget. Then he tells us how to run Medicaid. Many of the most widely used drugs will be available for 60% off, or even more than that. In addition, all new medications introduced by Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk to the American market will be sold at the heavily reduced most favored nations price. Most favored nations price estimates, because they have been thousands of percent lower than what we were selling in many cases. Furthermore, Eli Lilly is investing $27 billion. That's all? And Novo Nordisk will invest $10 billion. That's all? That's peanuts. In the United States to reshore and do a big domestic manufacturing job in the facilities. They're going to spend, so Eli Lilly spent $27 billion. Novo is spending $10 billion in the United States. So they're building new plant and equipment. That's part of what will be $20 or $21 trillion this year. There's never been anything like it. I know nobody talks about it, but there's never been anything like, I would say, you would say, that there's never been anything like this ever, whether it's China or Europe, or you could take all of Europe, there's never been anything like this. So we're already past 17 trillion. We're going to be, I think by the time the year closes out, we'll have investments of over $21 trillion based on the way we're going. And by the way, tariffs are very important. Without tariffs, perhaps it could be a little bit different, to put it mildly. Tariffs are so important. The decision in the Supreme Court would be devastating to our country if we got a negative, devastating if we got a negative decision. But this is a great day for American health and healthcare, and for all of American patients. These are things that are miracles to have this happen. And we're bringing all our medicines, again, because of tariffs, we're bringing all our medicines. If you remember where during COVID, we made almost no medicine here. We had to go to China, we had to go to Ireland, we had to go to other places, UK, to get our medicine. We didn't make it here. Now we're making it, we'll soon be making it all here, again, because of tariffs. And my election, but because of tariffs much more. For years, politicians have talked about making health care affordable, but my administration is actually doing it. Americans deserve the best health care in the world, and we're now getting the best health care at the lowest price. So I'd like to ask somebody who's doing a fantastic job, Secretary Kennedy, to say a few words, followed by Dr. Oz, Dr. Klomp, and then Eli Lilly, CEO David Ricks, and Novo Nordisk CEO Mike Dustar. These are incredible stars in that business. Dustar is a big star. And I can tell you that David Ricks is one of the hottest people in the world in business, but the business that he's in is pharmaceutical. And the job he's done with Eli Lilly is incredible. Both of these gentlemen, they really are stars in the truest sense. And it's an honor to have you in the White House. And go to it, Bobby.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to start by thanking you, Mr. President, for declaring war on chronic disease in this country. This is something no American president has ever done. If we want to solve the chronic disease crisis, we have to tackle obesity. Obesity is the #1 driver of chronic disease. 50% of our adult population are obese or overweight, and it drives about 50% of healthcare costs in this country. Diabetes, cardiac diseases, we are going to see a decline because of this historic agreement. We're going to see a decline in cost, but also, more importantly, in the afflictions themselves. President Trump is the friend of the forgotten American. Obesity is a disease of poverty, overwhelmingly, and these drugs have only been available for people who have wealth. At one point, the majority of prescriptions, the highest concentration of prescriptions in this country, was the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And what about the people who live in rural areas, who live in food deserts? What about the people in urban areas who live in food deserts and are suffering from obesity and are locked into that system where they can only get ultra-processed foods, which are aggravating the problem? This will be a lifesaver to them. It's not a panacea. It's not a silver bullet. President Trump has also instructed us to address and end the root causes of chronic disease, and we're doing that. We're about to release dietary guidelines that are going to change the food culture in this country. They're going to change the kind of food the military gets. They're going to change the kind of food that our children get. We're releasing those in December. The Presidential Council for Physical Fitness is going to get more Americans into, particularly our children, into physical activity so that we can attack the root causes of this. But in the meantime, there's nothing more important than we can do than lower this price. As I said, it is the #1 cost of all drugs. This is the biggest drug in our country. That's why this is the most important of all the MFN announcements we've made. This is going to have the biggest impact on the American people. All Americans, even those who are not on Medicaid and Medicare, are going to be able to get the same price for their drugs, for their GLP drugs. This happened because of the vision of David Ricks, of Mike Dustar, and the other people, and the people on our team who figured out a way to align the interests of the shareholders of their company with the health of the American public. And it is a momentous accomplishment. It took months and months of negotiations. And I had a wonderful conversation with Mike Dustar about his experience, and he thanked me for the caliber of people who are on our side of the negotiating team. Chris Klomp, who walked away from $1 billion business in order to join this administration, Emma Hernandez, David Brooks, and of course, Dr. Oz and Marty McGarry, who made this happen. They saw that this could be a win-win situation, that this was not a zero-sum game. The Biden administration tried to solve this problem unsuccessfully, I might add. by throwing $40 billion at it. They were able to achieve an agreement that will actually create savings for the American public. So we're making all of this available at a savings, and that's because the price of diabetes prescriptions is also going to drop. And the savings that we get from that are now going to make it available to people who do not have diabetes. People who have a BMI of 27 and above, or pre-diabetic, or have heart disease risk, they will be able to get it, but everybody will be able to get this drug, and it's going to change. We will lose, the American public, because of this agreement, will lose 125 million pounds by this time next year. It is going to have dramatic effects on human health in this country. And I want to thank President Trump for his leadership. He said that I'd gotten a lot done as HHS Secretary, but almost none of that is due to my ability. It's because I'm surrounded by people who are smarter than me, who are more able than me, and those people came into the administration because they were inspired by President Trump. People like Chris Klump are here because they see this.
Do you think they are smarter than you and
Yeah.
more able? No.
Believe me, they're a lot smarter than I am.
Why don't you take that job? He doesn't really mean that he's being modest, I promise you, but
It is true, unfortunately.
it's a beautiful thing.
But I want to thank you, Mr. President, because you've made me a success here by allowing me to attract these extraordinary people. And I want to again thank David Ricks, who we've been in this Oval Office again and again. You keep saying he's the smartest guy in industry, that he could talk a dog off a meat truck. But he came to the table, and Mike Newstar told me, he said,
He did convince people for 20 years that it was okay for Europe to pay $10 and for America to pay $140. That's why they make $45-50 million a year. He did. Finally, I said, I've had it, right? You did. He did. But anybody could do that, and they're entitled. But now it's down to what it should be.
and Mike Newstar told me what a pleasure it was to negotiate with people who were smart, who had common sense, who were able to put themselves in his position and hammer out this deal that is good for everybody. And it's great for the American public. I want to close again by just saying that this is a tool in the toolkit. It is not a silver bullet. It is an arrow in our quiver. It will allow a lot of people who are locked into high-risk obesity to finally lose weight, to reset, and then start doing the kind of things that will address the root causes of obesity. So I want to thank these extraordinary CEOs for sticking with us on this, for allowing us to make this happen. Mike Newstar said to me, he said, we've known we've had to do this for many years. We just haven't been able to get over the edge, and that this President Trump's order, his executive order, was a catalyst to do something that we always knew needed to be done. So again, thank you for your vision, for your commitment, and thank you to all the CEOs and all of my team for making this historic agreement happen.
Bobby, you haven't changed your view on Tylenol for women that are pregnant?
No. As I said,
there were some false reports out about Tylenol that Bobby changed his view. I don't think he's changed.
I'm not going to change until the science changes, and the science does not look like it's changing. It's getting stronger and stronger. Every day, what we recommend is that pregnant mothers, talk to their physicians, that the mothers of small kids talk to their physicians, and we've advised the physicians to reduce the thresholds and to reduce the amount of Tylenol that they give to children as much as possible, and only use it when it's absolutely critical.
Thank you.
So we're going to go through some of the deal points, but it does make itself clear that the real stake here is the forgotten man. President Trump, I believe you won the election because you remember the forgotten man. You speak to them, they hear you, they listen to you, and he connects well because he actually does things that materially change their lives. Secretary Kennedy spoke passionately as he always does, about the problems with obesity. And just to put some very fine point numbers on this, obesity itself is responsible for half of all chronic disease and definitely generates more than a quarter of all the money we spend out of CMS, the $1.75 trillion that we spend annually. We need to address this tempest of dramatically increasing prices for healthcare, and you're not going to do it just by throwing money at the problem. You have to actually literally deal with the causes of the increase in price, and pharmaceutical prices are a part of that. They've been a part of it for a long time, but this president insisted that we address it. In fact, the first time I heard this directly from you, sir, was in January at Mar-a-Lago, where he took Secretary Kennedy and myself, Mr. Ricks, who you'll hear from in a second, to dinner, and demanded explanations for most favored nation pricing and what's wrong with it. And there was not a good reason against it. Now, MAHA is critical. America will have to get fit in order to right-size the healthcare system, and MAHA has the answers. It has obesity management through diet and exercise and sleep and dealing with issues related to that. And I want to say it as clear as I can. Obesity is not an absence of GLP-1 drugs. We're all clear on that. But as Secretary Kennedy said, it is an arrow in our quiver that we must use and should use. The MAHA movement means making it easier for the right things to happen, easier for you to be healthy. If you're sitting at home and watching, that's what MAHA means to me. Reducing costs of the #1 most expensive medicine category in our country for Americans does just that. It is as MAHA as it gets. Today's the 4th MFN. President Trump highlighted the first 3. Leading U.S. company, leading European company. We've dropped in fertility drugs, so we'll make lots of Trump babies, I'm hoping, by the midterms. But it's really about fairness. Fundamentally, it's fairness in pricing to Americans who have been getting ripped off, paying 3 times more than their European counterparts for the exact same product made in the same factory, in the same bottle, in the same packaging. We shouldn't be paying 3 times more, and we are no longer doing that. Fairness to the forgotten man also means dealing with the reality that they can afford a life-saving, life-changing drug that 10% or more of affluent Americans take, but folks without means can't manage it. Secretary Kennedy mentioned New York City. Actually, the #1 zip code is the Upper East Side, which is where you have property. And folks who know ritzy areas buy important real estate there because those real estate properties are worth a lot there. That should not be the #1 zip code in America for purchasing GLP-1 drugs. It speaks to the fact that we have an inherently, innately unfair system that penalizes folks who can use these medications the most, folks in the Rust Belt. Now, what are you supposed to do the right thing to do for your health is right there, but you can't afford to get it? Folks need to be able to utilize these life-saving medications, and being fair about its distribution is essential. And we are democratizing access to these medications and dealing with a moral imperative to make sure that all Americans have access to avoiding all the obesity-related complications by making sure they can afford, if they do things right, not just MAHA-appropriate interventions, but also medications like this. In fact, we think these deals, and this part's very important, we believe these deals within 2 years, by the time the ink dries on these contracts that were signed earlier today, within 2 years, based on our health improvements, we will be budget neutral. These drugs will not cost us money. The American taxpayers will be getting their money back. That's how important it is for us to reduce the cost of healthcare in this country, especially when it's due to preventable problems like obesity. In addition, we have an update, Secretary Kennedy. We thought it was 125 million pounds. Mr. President, our estimate, based on the company numbers as well, is Americans will lose 135 billion pounds by the midterms. But I don't measure it in pounds. I measure it in saved lives. People can sleep again because they can breathe as when they go to bed. Folks whose knees don't hurt. People who don't have heart attacks, renal failure, dementia, all the things we know are associated with obesity and much more. This wouldn't have happened if we didn't have the right tools and had the ability with a team that has been spoken of early. So I want to call out Abe Sutton. He's in the back right there. He leads the CMS Innovation Center. It made the deal possible. And they are announcing today a new model, a brand new model aimed at getting to the vulnerable populations amongst us these medications. The forgotten man will be able to afford these drugs now. Governors will be thanking President Trump. They should be calling directly, sir, because they're going to be able to afford Medicaid next year in ways unimaginable, and they will stop crowding out education and other civil services. We cannot be a wealthy nation without being a healthy nation. That's why today's MFN deal is a historic step forward for all of America, and this is something that I don't think is partisan. There is no way you can argue against what just happened. These numbers to my side here, Administrator McCary, who's been instrumental in this process as well, $1,350 baseline, Chris Klump will go through the numbers, but just focus on that 245, which is what he's going to point you to. And Chris Klump has been an unbelievable leader, an innovator. You've heard his name before. He's spoken here before, but he is continuing to change the face of CMS, and I love the fact that with his leadership, we're bringing a lot of wonderful people in. Inma Hernandez has been mentioned, John Brooks as well, and many others, including Beth Kelly, who runs the legal issues around these issues, because these guys are barracudas, Mr. President. They will take you down, slice you in little bits. Howard's been there. It's no longer happening. You've got sharp folks. We're open for business. It's a generational opportunity to serve, and people are showing up. God bless you. Let me introduce now Chris Klump, who is just makes my life easier every day. I'm so proud of him.
All great deals are rooted in principles. We've talked about this before, and today we're announcing another truly great deal. I love this deal, and it's rooted in the principle of potential. This is about unlocking the full potential of every American, the grandmother, the grandfather, the father, the son, by unlocking access to affordable life-saving medications that make a meaningful difference in their lives when they need them most. That's what today delivers. It's a deal built on principle for people, for the American people, and backed by policy that works. So the most important step to getting healthy is believing that your life has value, that God meant for each of us to have purpose and joy and to live fully. And to do that, we must be good stewards of our body. And the president has been fighting to provide another tool to do just this and enable this. And it's my pleasure to get to outline the contours of the deal today. So first and foremost, customary with the three prior announcements, all of the customary most favored nation terms that you've grown familiar with apply to these two deals. So this is actually deals 4 and 5. Full Medicaid portfolios today at most favored nation prices. Shared savings from existing drug prices in Europe deployed back to the United States. All primary care drugs at U.S. net prices or most favored nation prices available on Trump RX before the end of the year. And most importantly, all future drug launches across commercial, Medicaid, Medicare, and the cash markets at most favored nation prices going forward. Now, GLP-1s. So first, under this agreement, starting doses of oral GLP-1s will cost just $149 a month for everyone. That's roughly 1/8 the cost of the list price today. For Medicare, manufacturers are voluntarily reducing their prices for GLP-1s currently used for diabetes and other covered indications to $245 per month across all doses. The savings generated from this change in prices will be used to provide new coverage to obesity and those who struggle with obesity and also have high metabolic or cardiovascular risk. Again, all for the same $245 a month. That means Americans struggling with diabetes and obesity, with heart disease, or other chronic conditions can access these life-changing drugs more affordably. Medicare patients, importantly, will only pay $50 a month for a copay. This is a massive reduction from what happens today. For Medicaid, Novo and Lilly have agreed to extend the same new low government pricing to all 50 state Medicaid programs should they opt in. And we encourage them to opt in. And these will be available not just for diabetes and current covered indications, but also for obesity again. And in case you're getting tired of me saying it, at the same price of $245 a month, all covered doses. On Trump RX, the average price of injectables and orals will start at $350 on average. That's compared to roughly $500 today. And that will trend down to, you guessed it, the same $245 a month over the next 24 months. That is 1/5 of the list price. It is 1/2 of the best price in the United States today. We're hoping, Mr. President, that your friend who has to travel to England to afford these drugs will no longer need to do so and can come and do it in the United States. I'll also just mention that the $149 is $1 less than what you asked us to achieve. Just gonna make sure that's clear. So I want to highlight two other really important points that make me love this deal so very much. First, this isn't about spending more, it's about spending smarter. The savings from the diabetes drug price reductions are being used in a cost-neutral way to fund the new indications for taxpayers. That's amazing, and that happens inside of that same 24-month period. It's cost neutral. We're spending the money more wisely. But second, this isn't just about lower drug prices for Americans, though it does do that, but together with physical activity, with healthy eating and diet, and where appropriate, the use of breakthrough GLP-1s, the real return on investment is healthier Americans, lower chronic disease, lower costs, we estimate by tens of billions of dollars a year, and most importantly, higher productivity. Today is about freeing Americans from the weight, literally and figuratively, that holds us back. It's about unlocking the potential of every citizen to live fully, to contribute fully, and to find joy in their health. We cannot reach our full potential as a nation if we do not reach our full potential as individuals. And we cannot reach our full potential as individuals if we are not healthy. Thanks to Nova and Lilly for showing up so constructively over the last several months to make this possible. In particular, thanks to you, Mr. President, for again demonstrating that you fight for every American, this time for potential. It's now my sincere pleasure to first introduce Dave Ricks from Lilly and then Mike Dusto from Nova.
Great, thank you, Chris. It's truly an honor to be here today for this historic step forward to expand access to a class of medications that can fundamentally change the arc of chronic disease in our country. Of course, these are the incretin or GLP-1 agonist that we've been speaking about. For nearly 150 years, my company, Eli Lilly, has been investing in America. We've been advancing science and creating high-value jobs. But today, oh, you okay? Gordon, you okay? Yeah.
Press out. Press. We're going. Thank you, press. Cameras, we're done. Cameras.